Okay. All right, good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting of March 14th. This meeting is being televised by Whitman Hanson Community Access Television. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Before we jump into our meeting, I would like to have a moment of silence for Michael Wojak, a former member of the Finance Committee. This gentleman was very involved in his children's sports, many town activities, and he was what embodies a public servant. So if we could have a moment of silence, thank you. Thank you, and our condolences to his family. Mrs. Rain, may I prevail upon you to read the public announcements?
Yes. Nomination papers for the May 20th town election are now available at the town clerk's office for the following offices: moderator for a 3-year term, 2 select boards for 3-year terms, assessor for a 3-year term, board of health for a 3-year term, cemetery commissioner for a 3-year term, planning board for a 5-year term, Hanson Housing Authority for a 5-year term, 2 trustees of public library for 3-year terms, Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Committee pre-K through 12 for a 3-year term, Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Committee pre-K through 12 for remaining 2-year term, Water Commissioner for 3-year terms. Each candidate prior to obtaining blank nomination papers shall sign a statement containing his/her name and address and the town office for which he/she intends to be a candidate. The last day to obtain nomination papers is Monday, March 27th, 2023, and nomination papers must be returned to the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. Friday, March 31st. A minimum of 50 certified signatures of registered voters is necessary in order for a candidate's name to be placed on the ballot. That's it, isn't it? Nope. Wait 1 second. Upcoming meetings: Select Board, March 21st, 2023. Select Board, April 4th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Rain. And I would like to make an appeal that the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Committee pre-K through 12, remainder of the 3-year term, is a recently opened position and one that is extremely important. And I'm really hoping that if you've been thinking about perhaps getting involved, that this might be your opportunity to get involved, and that you can pull papers, and you do have until the 27th. So just a little public service announcement. All right, we have quite an agenda here this evening, and so we are going to just start chugging along here. First up, we've got a building inspector update. Ms. Green.
Yes, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. So our building inspector is on vacation this week. So he has provided me with an update for some of the projects going on around the town. To begin, Station Landing, which is 999 Main Street. The foundation for the first phase has been set, and the septic system and underground plumbing will start this month. The adjacent house located at 965 Main is scheduled for demolition next month. 1139 Main Street, demo of the existing structure, formerly the package store, Brookside Realty LLC. The demo permit was issued and the structure was raised on Thursday, March 2nd. And as of this date, no building permits have been applied for. 1064 Main Street, which a convenience store. A signage permit was issued for the store. The building department is waiting on an engineering plan for the renovation work that's being proposed. 1101 Main Street, Ken Marsden, winterizing structure. It used to be a warehouse. They're installing new windows and doors. The Cushing Trail up on Spring Street. The water main is installed and the base coat for the road is laid. Building permits for 4 duplexes have been issued, but no construction has commenced at this time. The septic system plan is having some revision done to it. Installation of that will start upon approval from the Board of Health. 280 Liberty Street, condominiums LLC. The land is being cleared for the condominiums, renewing the expired disposal works construction permit. That's what he has written. I'm not sure what that means. 14 Acorn Road, which it was Rich's removal. That was a property that was brought, that came to the attention a bit ago. There was a court hearing on that property on February 6th. The Plymouth County Courthouse. The defendant was ordered to clean up the yard and was given 30 days to comply, which will end on March 8th. He has been by the property and has witnessed some improvement to the property, and will continue to follow up. 16 Liberty Street, which is the Heap property. The storage of vehicles and improper stored bulk materials in violation of Article 3-11 of the Town of Hanson bylaw. He was ticketed back in November of 2022. The return receipt letter was returned undeliverable. So he has notified the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office, and they will be receiving the documents to serve Heap this coming week. And 61 Ransom Road, the location of an accessory structure in the front yard. Again, he's notified the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office, and they'll be receiving the documents to serve those folks, again, during the coming week. And that concludes the building inspector report.
And where are we at with the building inspector's licensing?
So he has been taking courses, and I believe he has taken a couple of the exams. I'm not sure if he's found out whether he's passed them or not, but I know he is in the process.
Could we
He's
plan on
actively
getting a
doing
more
that.
robust update at our next meeting on that? Okay, great.
Yes.
And please thank Carrie for that update. Did anybody have any questions for Ms. Green on that? Everybody good? All right, with that, we will move on to, I'm going to try to be cognizant of who we've got here and respectful. So I'm just going to take a few little things out of order. Discuss creation of a task force for the transfer station. And we've got Melissa Panetti, the chair of the Board of Health, and we've got Mike Dugan, the chair of FinCom, and no, you're not involved in that, but you're involved in everything,
Wow.
Frank, so I was just ready to plug you in on that one. And so, I don't know who, Melissa, did you want to? Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Melissa Panetti, Chair of the Board of Health. I was last here in front of you back, I think, September, the end of September, to discuss a proposed plan or outline for how we would begin to address the longstanding transfer station budget. And I know more about trash and transfer stations now than I thought I would. That I would ever know. So I thought it might be helpful to just give an outline of what has been done since I last saw you that led to the discussion of creating a task force, and then also the article that we'll have at town meeting. So what first came to my attention was that the contracts for disposal and hauling had been expired for quite some time. Some of our recycling expenditures were sort of in flux with the market rather than more stable, which meant we may have been paying more than we needed to over those many years for disposing of our recycling. So at that point, I met with Waste Management. Gil and I met with Waste Management and discussed the possibility of obtaining a quote from them for servicing the transfer station. I also asked them at that time to provide us, just for conversation and comparison, for a quote on what it would cost us for townwide pickup. So I have both of those from Waste Management. I also requested a quote from Harvey, who is currently servicing the transfer station, and they provided me a proposal as well. I spent some time, extensive time, looking at the budget. It's pretty tight and simple. The overwhelming cost of operation comes from our hauling and disposal. We started discussing in our meetings how we could decrease the tonnage of mainstream waste, and which included the decision to open the swap shop, which seems to be a hit. I'm hoping that will generate some more shopping as the weather gets nicer. It's not a great day to...
Kudos on that, Melissa.
Thank you.
That was great, and our thanks to the Board of Health for that, because that was a great initiative.
And our attendants at the transfer station are doing an excellent job trying to deal with what are the inevitable frustrations of starting anything up from scratch. So I really appreciate their help with it. I think we're going to be looking to add some volunteers. I have a meeting with some folks about volunteering and running it from a volunteer base. I met with Claire from South Shore Recycling to get some ideas on cost savings at the transfer station, and we started using some RDP grant monies that we've accumulated over time to help make some improvements in our service delivery up there. And then I looked back at the 2014 article from town meeting, which established the enterprise fund and took a look at the overall trend of expenses to revenues from then until now. So when we received the two quotes, it was eye-opening. We're about to enter into it'll actually go to our town administrator for approval, but the plan will be to enter into a contract for 1 year with Harvey, who came in substantially lower than Waste Management. Just their cost for the rental of the compactors alone, Waste Management was about 5 times higher than Harvey. Wow. On the attached to the article, I don't know if you have a copy of that, but there is a chart that I constructed that shows the increase in our operating expenses from 2016 to now, to this new contract. And you can see the percentage increases: 23% for hauling, 25% for equipment rental, 160% for the tip fee for mainstream waste per ton. And then, of course, back then, we were not paying anything for recycling. We were, in fact, receiving some funds and getting rid of our recycling to China. That is no longer happening. In addition, we now have to pay fuel charges. Just in the last month, they have doubled. With all of that being said, it was clear to me, even more so now with these new proposals coming in, that the transfer station is not ever going to be self-sustaining as it is right now. And it led to some meetings with Selectman Weeks, Mr. Dugan from the Finance Committee, and Eric to discuss how we can start to look at the transfer station and if it's the right model, if there's a better model, or if there's another service delivery for handling Hanson's trash. We thought that creating a task force, hopefully of the 4 of us, so we're in deep in discussions, would help keep things transparent and make information available as we go to the town.
And so so people don't get their knickers in a twist about this.
Yes, please.
This is a group to study what we are doing. It is not a lockdown, preconceived notion, already decided, any of that stuff. This is literally to just crunch the numbers, look at pros and cons of various approaches, and then bring it back for a full public discussion.
Absolutely. One of the things that, one of the numbers that I think is important is that significantly more than half the town does not utilize the transfer station, but And so that means they're paying for their trash to be disposed of some other way. And they're also having taxation, they're paying through their taxes for the funding of the transfer station. So there's some due diligence I think we have to do to look at the numbers, see what makes sense.
Mike,
I
did
just
you?
wanted to address a couple of points in regards to looking at, studying, and come to a recommendation saying we've looked at 4 or 5 different options and this is the best recommendation to move forward to address things. The wheels of this are going to turn very slowly, and I'm not saying that this would be the end result, but if this was something where you moved to curbside for the entire town, this is about a 2-year project, and that would be assuming we could say we're go today. Part of any of these things are the outlay of any new equipment. For example, whatever company needs to have additional trucks, additional drivers. So you have a longer ramp-up period. So to your point, nothing is going to change today. Nothing is going to change a year from now. It's that, quite frankly, we're looking at a budget that is projecting $200,000 in revenue being generated to support $428,000 of expenses. We've just gotten to a point of being that there's so much taxation being poured in that I think we are better off looking at other options. We may end up being back in the same place, but it's time that we really rolled up our sleeves and looked at what can and can't be done, as opposed to saying we need to use another $230,000 of taxation just to have that be a level budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would really, at this point, because of the dynamics changing so significantly, that really couldn't have been predicted years ago. I mean, who could have predicted half of the things that have happened over the last 5 years? I think it would be irresponsible for us not to explore other options. Also, want to be super clear that we will at all times take into consideration that we have employees working there.
Absolutely.
And think about what their long-term impact would be and how we might best serve them as well, because that's an arm of the analysis that I know you guys will be doing.
Yeah, and those are points that have been discussed already.
Yeah, and Mr. Weeks, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on that?
Yeah, I just, so Melissa and Mike and Eric have done a fantastic job of kind of putting this group together to start the conversations around this. And I just want to acknowledge that the reason why we are coming here is in the sake of transparency. We want to make sure that all of the information, all the conversations that we've been having aren't behind closed doors, that they are available to pretty much everybody, so they can come along and get informed and give ideas along with us as we try to brainstorm new ways of doing this. It's not lost on us that half the town, from anecdotally, we still have to get these numbers as we kind of figure this out, but half the town uses curbside pickup, but we have a substantial amount of folks in this town that are on fixed income that depend heavily on the transfer station. And what we're trying to do, at least right now, is be able to gather data to make informed decisions about, you know, what has the operational costs looked like over the past 5 to 10 years, and how can we use that to project into the future so we can try to keep pace with what we need in order to prepare ourselves for what the future might look like in whatever way that is. That's why we really don't know where it is. This is really just protecting the citizens, but also being able to stretch the tax dollar as far as we can possibly go and utilize it in a meaningful way. So I really think that the task force is necessary to really just allow us to kind of hone in and try to figure out what, you know, how can we make a recommendation to the townspeople, one direction, another, or something we haven't even thought of yet, because we really think that this is an important aspect of the town, and we kind of need everybody's input on this. So.
Well, and I really love the cross-pollination of all of the different groups working together, so that, you know, so that it isn't just representing one viewpoint. It's, you know, everybody's coming together, looking at what's best for the town, and cohesively making a recommendation. And I just love that. I think it's fantastic. So I appreciate the work you guys have already done. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Melissa, or?
No, I think that covers the...
Mr. Hickey?
I have 3 questions, Melissa.
Okay.
They're easy. No, the first one is the fuel cost. Diesel has been pretty steady over the last 6 months. even though gas has gone down, diesel has been pretty steady. So, I mean, I don't know if there's something you can work out, or if, you know, Gil could make a phone call. Question 2 on home pickup. Did you get any kind of ballpark figure?
Yes. So Waste Management, excuse me, provided us with approximately $1.5 million.
Okay. And divided by basically 1,750 homes in Hanson, right?
No.
Is it bigger than that?
It's
You would have like 3,800.
3,800, yeah.
There are homes that would be utilizing trash service.
3,800, okay.
One of the points that came out of our last meeting was to have her job something that was more definitive. So that was a ballpark estimate based on comparable towns, local comparable towns. And so we decided we would have her, she said it takes a number of weeks, if not a couple of months, to put something together that is solid for us to work off of. So that's don't hold me to the 1.5.
The only reason I'm asking is, it's nice to know someone knows as much about trash as I do. Because in that contract, you would, if we were to go this way, you would want the company to pay for the toters, not the townspeople or the town of Hanson. Make that part of the contract. I've seen that done more than once.
Okay.
And the only other thing was on the swap.
Yes.
You may want to talk to Lisa, because there's a certain amount of jobs for seniors in town
Okay.
where they can take money off their taxes, where it may create some positions. Sorry, Mike. But, you know, it's possible that, you know.
Sure.
And where there are so many senior women doing different jobs, this might be an opportunity, you know, for some of the guys, or a better opportunity for the guys.
That would
Absolutely.
be a fun little gig, too.
Yeah, and it's, you know, 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, you know,
My intention is this week to put together an email blast to come from the Board of Health and also out on our social media outlets to advertise for folks.
okay,
To-
great.
So
Thanks.
just
Yeah, thank you.
on your numbers, that bid estimate in very ballpark, I want to say, you correct me if these are wrong.
Sure.
I want to say it was bid off of 2,900 municipal solid waste tons and 1,900 of recycling.
Okay,
And that was where they kind of are using that to extrapolate an overall cost. We sat down and worked with Eric, and kind of, one of the things we wanted to model out is, given the increased costs, are we going to get to the end of this fiscal year and have money, or be out of money? So some of the things that were factored in, that fuel charge is related to a 14% based on the haul.
yeah,
So some months that you have 4 or 5 versus some months 7, that ends up with fluctuating amounts.
Right.
Our 6-month average, we just kind of looked at the last 6 months, we are running right now about 55 tons of solid waste and about 22 tons of recycling. And ballpark that at about 40% of the town, and then you kind of stretch that math out and see how in line we are to that number. But I think it was just to give us an idea.
Sure.
Because, let's face it, I think that was something that's been talked about several years ago, and I think the last time anybody made a phone call just to say, hey, give me a quick estimate, I want to say that number was more like 750,000. So now we're hearing almost twice that amount. So again, that gets into, maybe this was the right idea, but is cost going to work? Who knows? This
Right.
is part of what we need to have that task force for, to really kind of, you know, dig into these numbers and look at possible solutions that are going to work better to, as Mr. Weeks said, stretch the tax dollar.
I think it's great. Did anybody else have any other questions? Mrs. Rain?
I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Okay. And Mr. Heel?
I'd like to thank you very much for doing all the task force and everything, and setting this all up. This is great for the town and the openness is big. Do we know about how long you're planning this task force to not to last, like when we were filing a report, I'm sorry if you already said that. But
We haven't discussed a length of time. I think we had hoped that we would have something prior to October town meeting, something to present to the town.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, Mr. Melissa?
Yeah, sorry, just a quick observation, because on the residential side, so 1.5 million, 3,800 houses, you said? Or 3,800 residents? Is that what you said?
3,800.
So that's comparable to the residential rate that people pay right now. It's about $112 a quarter for the biggest company that uses Hanson, and that would be $400 per household that would be paying for trash at a residential level. But we also had a fuel surcharge added to our residential rates last quarter as well, and that was a 20% upcharge on all the fuel costs for residential.
I have to say something.
So it's not like they're, I would be surprised if the price was actually that high, because usually you'd figure bulk loading would be less if you have the whole town as a contract, but the fuel cost definitely makes sense.
Well, Melissa did say it was a quasi back of the envelope type of thing, you know, and that she needs to really, that this woman from Waste Management needs to go back and crunch the numbers a little bit. Mrs. Rain, did you have a burning?
I just really want to emphasize that whatever happens has to be affordable for those people that are not using curbside pickup. And there's a reason why, and I happen to be one of them.
Yeah.
I don't use curbside. I use the transfer station, and I know many people my age and older that do the same thing because it's too expensive to have curbside pickup for us. I don't generate anywhere near the amount of trash, and I recycle everything. So, I mean, I'm worried about my neighbors. I'm worried about the people that I know in my neighborhood that are on fixed incomes that are not going to be able to afford this. That's what I'm worried about.
No, I hear you, and I also am a transfer station user, and I love that I don't have to let stuff sit out there for like a whole week and wait until they come pick it up. I kind of anal that way. I like to get my trash down there. And so, you know, I hear you, but what I've heard these guys say is that they're going to try to do, you know, it's a Herculean task to try to figure out what's in the best interest of the entire town of Hanson.
Right.
We've got all these competing needs, right? This is the classic case that we all deal with. We've got competing needs. We want cost efficiencies. We want convenience. We don't want to bankrupt anybody who might be teetering already with financial difficulties.
The thing that came to mind was someone said, that, you know, that so many people that are paying for curbside will be subsidizing the transfer station. It's the same thing in the school systems. There's plenty of people that are paying taxes and they're sending their kids to private school. So to me, it's kind of a reverse thing. That's for the kids, this is for the old people.
That's why it's called the Commonwealth.
Right.
And, you know, for instance, I have not, now I'm going to probably call the universe in, but I have not had the fire department have to come to my house.
Exactly.
And I'm still paying taxes for the fire. Same with police, you know? So, I mean, that's part of, we're in a Commonwealth. So we all pitch in for the services.
Right.
Mr. Weeks.
I just wanted to add, those are great comments. The reason why we're asking right now is for the sake of transparency. You have three groups of folks coming together, to your point earlier. But the point is that there are no foregone conclusions. We don't even necessarily know at all what direction we're going in. All the three of us agreed to was we haven't looked at it in depth this long in a long time, and due to Melissa's leadership, really brought everybody together and just simply said, we just have to look at it. We have to figure out where we're going and what that's going to look like. No single person has come up with an idea of where we're going to be 6 months from now or 6 years from now. The idea is, what's the utilization rate right now? What do projections look like in the future? How can we use this knowledge to better prepare ourselves as a town? Because one of the things that we don't want, because this has happened a couple of times on town meeting floor, where people will make amendments to the budget to even defund. We don't want that to happen, right? So the idea is, we really just want to be able to, in this forum, make it known that we have met. The three of us agreed that it makes more sense to do this in a more public setting, because the information is the most important piece of this entire conversation right now. We do not want to have three groups of individuals meeting and coming up with these plans and prepare. We want the town to be a part of it. So we're going to take minutes, publish whatever we got to do. But we want this to be you know, a dynamic, open process of just gathering data and figuring it out.
I love it.
I just have
Mr.
one more
Hickey.
question
Yep.
and then a comment. I'm sorry. How many people, how many households use the transfer station right now? Or I should just ask you point blank, how many stickers have been sold since the beginning of last year?
There are 1,800 active, approximately, stickers, 1,800.
I knew that 1750 was useful. And my other question, and it's not this simple, and where you three have been at the meeting, to take the opposite approach from Ann, even if you doubled the price of everything to use the transfer station, it would still be less than, you know, the individual carrier coming to someone's house. But at double the price, you're still 28,000 short, Mike, right? I thought you said 428 is what it costs to run.
The projected budget for fiscal '24, the expenses are budgeted at 428.
And you're only bringing in 200,000?
Right, with the projected revenues at 200,000.
So it's not that simple, and I get it. And like Joe said, I do appreciate everything you've done on this because there's no easy solution.
No, there isn't an easy solution. And I worry about, you know, we got to get hijacked by a company who comes in on one price, which we've seen a lot of the people that had the private haul. You know, we're going to get hijacked and they're going to say, well, we'll get you now because you guys don't even have a transfer station anymore. I worry about that. I worry about the seniors. So there's a lot of different competing needs. But you know what? We're going to leave that up to capable hands. We're going to leave it up to the three of you guys, along with our town accountant, to work through all of those details. And I will entertain a motion to support the creation of a task force for the transfer
So
station
moved.
study. Okay?
Second.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Dugan.
Ask before you have that vote, we right now are kind of three involved in this.
Did you want somebody else, or?
Well, what I'm asking you is, what is your comfort level? We don't want to necessarily have where,
Three.
you know, yeah, is it 3, is it 4, is it 5?
I think we have found as a committee, the leaner we can keep things, the better off we are. It gets unwieldy when you've got a whole bunch of people. And again, you guys aren't making a decision, you're making a recommendation and you're studying it. And so I feel very comfortable that there'll be plenty of time for public input, public concerns. You'll be posting your meetings because you're a committee. So if people want to come and they feel extremely passionate about giving their feedback, then, and they're so inclined, then, you know, it's a public meeting. You can go to the meeting. So I feel comfortable with 3. I don't know what you guys think.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody feel wildly differently? Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, Melissa, did you quickly want to go over your little article that you had? I don't mean to diminish it by saying little article.
Sure, I think it actually piggybacks nicely on what we were just discussing.
And I have to tell you that Lynn is out today and we don't have the list of articles, so you're just going to have to give a little background on it.
Okay, so the article that we're proposing is to dissolve the Hanson Transfer Station Enterprise Fund. And the explanation really comes out of all of the points we were just discussing, that it's very clear that the transfer station is no longer even close to being able to be self-sustaining within an enterprise fund, and that the cost to operate the transfer station has consistently and increasingly exceeded the revenue coming from the stickers, bags, trip tickets, et cetera. And the circumstantial changes, for example, recycling now needing to be paid for to dispose of, and the inflationary impact of the last number of years, and the fuel charges have really escalated the inability to fund itself. So, and basically I say in the article, absent substantial increases to user fees, the enterprise fund model is not able to sustain operation at of the transfer station. And I provide the chart which shows the difference in our expenses from 2016 to 2023. as well as we'll have an overlay, actually an overlay of the revenues to expenses from 2016 to 2022. I think Eric is putting that together to provide to the town at town meeting.
And you checked in with FinCom and Eric on this, and everybody's all about the transparency, really, that this brings, because now it's clear. There's no kind of trying to figure out what was in the enterprise and what,
Yeah, there's a couple
Yeah.
of points, if I may.
Please.
That this is, and I don't mean to sound like I'm belittling the topic, for all intent and purposes, this is more of an internal accounting classification than anything else. It will, and I want to stress this point, whether it remains an enterprise fund or we dissolve the enterprise fund and move to a town department, will have no impact or no change whatsoever to how that is run right now. This is simply a manner of, quite frankly, providing a little bit more flexibility. Just quickly on that, the expenses we've all talked about have ramped up far more than we ever expected, and the offsetting revenue is not there. We've been supplementing that with taxation. Moving to a town department, we would continue, until we, in the interim, we would continue to have the bag fee revenues, the service tickets, and things that are driving some form of revenue to help offset that particular budget expense. However, right now, if there is a shortfall or an immediate cash need, under the setup of the enterprise fund, there's two ways that the Board of Health can deal with that. That's either come to me and ask my committee for a reserve fund transfer, or wait until town meeting and ask for additional appropriations. In a town department, we have the ability to do line item transfers of moving things around, and so it's I have an immediate cash need because whatever there was in an overtime line, now I'm out, but I need to be able to do that. That gives them a little bit more flexibility to respond to that immediately, rather than saying I need a reserve fund or I need to wait until town meeting. And that, coupled with the fact that we don't see this ever truly being self-sustaining and generating any sort of profit, for lack of a better term, to reinvest in that department, just says, let's just move forward, dissolve the enterprise fund, be a town department, and then as the task force continues, now where do we go with it from there?
Yep, perfect. So Melissa was coming to talk about the establishment of this committee, and I just thought, yes, we will do the dry run of all the articles, but I just thought this was a little bit different, and since she was already going to be here, we'd kind of kill two birds with one stone. Did anybody have any further questions for Melissa on that article? No need to take a vote, but I just thought, that it would be good to hear from her on that. Okay, thanks a lot, Melissa. We appreciate the update. And did you want to just mention your other article?
Yes, and Mike, if you want to weigh in on this one too, I think we decided that we would keep this in the warrant as a placeholder, even if the ultimate plan was to pass over, in part because we are still sorting out with these new increases that are coming. We want to be sure that we're able to fully fund for this fiscal year.
Okay.
And we're in that flux moment.
So there's a placeholder for potentially having to fund if there is a deficit.
Correct.
A deficit, but it's early stage, so we just don't know yet.
We spent some time modeling out kind of here's what expenses have been to date, here's what the remaining 5 months at the higher cost charges, and tried to model out where we would be. We believe that we would be able to end the year without needing an additional appropriation, but we all felt conservatively it's better to leave that in there and, quite frankly, even pass over at town meeting than to pull it out saying we're good and then we come back hat in hand.
Yeah, we don't want any transfer station drama. We don't need that. Okay, that's great. All right, did anybody have any questions about that? All right, well, thank you guys so much for the update. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on, and we have got a North and South River Watershed Association presentation. And Ms. Green, I know later in our agenda, I believe we are going to be talking about the select board meeting warrant articles, and does anybody else have them in their packet? I cannot find those.
What's that?
The select board town meeting warrant
No,
articles.
they're not in here.
Okay.
They're not in.
So I was wondering, while we have, I'm sorry.
Becky.
Okay, Becky, while we have Becky here, whether you might be able to excuse yourself and.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Because I had it as in an email and I can't find it.
Okay.
I must have thrown it out.
All right, so Becky, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, sure.
Just so you know, Becky has very rudely been rescheduled several times, and has obliged us each time. So we appreciate your flexibility, Becky.
Of course. And I think you guys have handouts, but I'm just gonna pull up the slides and put them on a chair just so you can see some of the visuals of color.
Well, for the two people that might be viewing at home, I'm wondering, Ryan, can we hook her up so that she can show online what we're going to be viewing?
Thumb drive, if that's easier.
You have an HDMI on your computer?
Of course, I didn't bring it, no, because I had sent it. But
No, I mean, you should have a
be able to
board.
join
Oh, I have a
Zoom.
port, yes. I also have a thumb
She
drive.
should be able to join the Zoom.
Ryan, did we want to take a brief recess while we're addressing our technological issues?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. We had a brief recess, and we're now going to jump into our North and South Rivers Watershed Association presentation.
Hi, yes, so I'm Becky Malamet. I'm the River Restoration Coordinator. I was here September, October, where you guys appointed Matt Dyer to the Indian Head River Restoration
Yes.
Steering Committee. So one of the first kind of charges of the steering committee was to begin an education and outreach program around the Indian Head River Restoration Project. So this is part of that. So right now, the very beginning stages, very early stages of feasibility study to look at the potential impacts of removing Ledham's Ford Dam and the State Street, Cross Street / Indian Head Dam. So my goal here tonight, and what I've been doing since about November, is going to all three towns, Hanover, Hanson, Pembroke's relevant boards and committees, doing a presentation about dams, river restoration, and this project, to just start to get the word out there, start to get some education out there, but also to start to hear feedback and comments. And along those lines, I was just knocking doors at the Adams Circle neighborhood this weekend, starting to get some more direct feedback. We're also having a Zoom info session for residents and interested parties from all three towns at the end of the month. So we're really starting to get this moving.
Excuse me, Becky.
Sure.
Could you possibly send information on that to Lisa, if you have not already done that, so that we could put it up on our town website?
Absolutely, that should all be
Okay.
going out hopefully the end of this week. We just confirmed our last
Okay.
kind of presenter. So just basically dams are structures that go across a river or a stream to hold the water back typically. So they look very different. They can look very different. So this top one is Ledham's Ford Dam, engineered concrete structure, you've got a fish ladder that comes through the middle. And then the bottom, you've got the dam that's just downstream of the State Street Bridge, really a series of rocks and boulders but they also have the same purpose, which was holding water back to provide energy or provide power for the industries that were along the river. Dams can also provide flood control. They can provide storage for agriculture and human needs, and also recreation. So these are two of just of over 3,000 dams in Massachusetts. So you can see they're spread all over the Commonwealth. And they come in different shapes and sizes and forms, just like we just saw right in this general area. So of those 3,000, a little over 40 are currently used for flood control. Another over 40 are used as licensed hydropower dams. Another 100 plus are for reservoirs, which leaves about 2,800 dams that were built for industries that no longer exist, or for other purposes that no longer exist. So they really don't serve a purpose. And once you lose that purpose, what you're really left with are the impacts that dams have on the rivers. So once you build a dam, the structure here, it turns a free-flowing river into a series of ponds, right? So one of the things that does is
In the warmer months, it will increase temperatures in those ponds, which lowers the oxygen, increases algae, makes it a really difficult place for plants and animals to live. It also traps sediment and nutrients behind the dam, so this yellow here, right? So that covers the riverbed, which is a habitat that animals and plants can no longer use. But also in a case like we have here, where there is some contamination in those sediments, it will increase the concentration of contamination in that water body itself. What's called an impoundment is that water body behind the dam. And then the other thing it does is it blocks fish passage. So we have anadromous fish here. We've got our shad and our river herring that need to go from ocean to their spawning habitat upstream, and they can no longer do that once the dam is built, even with the fish ladder. The fish ladder at Ludham's Ford Park is really not functional. And then you just have general fish, eels, and other things that use the river for passage, and they can no longer do that. So these are some of our fish populations that we're seeing in trouble in this river. This graph here shows river herring population over time. So this is late 1800s, early 1900s. We see a big spike in their population in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and the sharp decrease here in the 70s, early 80s. And the thinking is that that decrease has more to do with bycatch in the oceans and overfishing in the oceans. And we've done a lot of work to solve those problems, create sustainable fisheries, a lot more regulations around fishing in the oceans. So the fish are starting to come back in the oceans, but if they can't get upstream to their spawning habitat, you really haven't solved the problem. So this graph here really just shows it's not just the dams that these fish and other species have to deal with. They're part of a larger problem. Series of problems, but this is an area where we can help by removing the dams. So the North and South Rivers Watershed Association, we've removed over 20 dams just on the South Shore in the last 20 or so years. Restored about 17 miles of, reconnected about 17 miles of river. So this would, removing these two dams would reconnect another a little over 1.5 miles of river.
And Becky,
Sure.
Do you work with the folks at Burridge, the wildlife fisheries folks at all there?
No, I don't know Barge.
Really? Mass Wildlife Fisheries, Burridge? Burridge Wildlife Management? It's in Hanson, it's off of Fox.
Yeah, the Barge, no, I don't.
It's enormous. It may not be on your watershed, it may be Taunton River watershed. But it is certainly contiguous and extremely enormous, and has dams. It was a former series of cranberry bogs.
It was the largest cranberry bog in America.
And now it's open for people to hunt and fish and walk. And
I don't know about it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And that's just the sort of stuff that I'm looking to get from these presentations, is kind of institutional knowledge, things I should know about, people I should talk to, that sort of things.
Well, in fact, it connects to our town hall pond. It's contiguous to that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that.
Which connects up into the Indian Head River.
Yep.
And so, we did actually, I'll talk about that at the end, because it'll be a little more, make more sense then.
And so,
remind me
are
about
you
that.
working with state agencies and towns and?
Yeah, so we're working with the town. So let me just, these are a couple of other dam removal projects that we've done on the South Shore, just so you can get a sense of how it looks. I picked some that looked pretty similar to the larger dam that we're looking to remove. So you can see, vegetation does grow back. This was taken pretty soon after this one was removed. So you still have a stream, you still have a river. It's typically a much more narrow channel and a much more vegetated wildlife scene. Benefits of the river restoration projects, restoring all those ecosystem functions that we talked about in that kind of cartoon slide, restoring the river herring spawning habitat, the cultural values of the herring run. Herring has been a staple food for Native people and early settlers that really does not exist anymore in this area. Eliminating liability for towns and private dam owners. So Hanson and Hanover are co-owners of the State Street Dam. So any damages that would result from a breach, which, that dam already is kind of breached. So any damages that would result from that would be on the towns to mitigate and to pay for. So there isn't, with the exception of the ARPA funds, and until the ARPA funds, there really isn't a lot of money for infrastructure repair, but there is a lot for habitat restoration. And then the last piece is climate change resilience. These dams were certainly not engineered by today's standards or today's weather patterns. So restoring the natural flows of the river, there's a lot more opportunity to absorb major storm events where we don't have that when there's concrete and rocks. So this is where we are in the process. So we conducted a reconnaissance study last year, which I think I mentioned when I was here in September, October, which provides the basis for a feasibility study, or kind of a roadmap for the feasibility study. So the feasibility study is going to look at, in much greater detail, both of these dams. We'll do some mapping, a lot more sediment sampling. So some was done as part of the reconnaissance reports. We'll do a lot more to really understand not only quantity, and volume, but the levels of contamination, and that will help us determine a sediment management plan. The initial studies or sampling that we saw shows actually some lower levels of contamination behind Ludham's Ford Dam, but at much higher volume. And the kind of the inverse of the State Street, lower volume of sediment, which makes sense, it's a smaller dam, but higher levels of mercury and lead specifically. So we really need to understand that a lot more so we can get that out of there safely and not impact anything downstream when we come time to remove the dam. Looking at impacts on infrastructure in the work area, so that the bridge, the State Street Bridge there, there's a concern that those footings, if we lower water levels, that it could impact the footings of that bridge. So that's obviously something we'll need to look into.
Please feel free to disable that bridge for a while. Please feel free. The 2 years that thing was down before were awesome.
Oh, interesting, right, because it wasn't that long ago.
State Street. It was awesome.
Got it. So we'll look at that. We'll look at historical impacts, as well as, identifying community concerns. At the end of this study, we should have a 40% design. We'll have renderings, so people, especially butters and people who use that impoundment, which there isn't as much use of the impoundment here as there is at Ludham's Ford, but it's more the aesthetics. Get a sense of how it will look, and then cost estimates. So right now, this feasibility study is being funded by the Natural Resource Damages Fund, which is a state fund that covers offsite damages that resulted from the contamination at the fireworks site.
And I think we all had to sign off on you guys applying to that, right?
Yes, you wrote a letter of support when we applied for the grant, so we did get those monies. We did ask in that proposal to look at some other dam removal projects in the watershed. DEP really chose to focus on these two. They're the first two dams up from the river. They're the largest two. It's a bigger project, and I think they want to see how this goes, and then we'll continue to apply for more of the watershed, not just these two.
Can I say something though?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I'm worried about the sediment that's built up. And, you're not touching the factory pond dam, right?
No, so none of this money can go towards cleaning that up. Now, if we...
Right, but I'm just thinking that that's coming from there.
Right, so right now, that dam is holding steady, and there should be a plan to deal with that sediment once they can get, I believe now the plan is to lower the river, and they've got to clean the river, or kind of dig under the riverbed and understand what's there. So that's definitely a complicating factor, right? And is something that the consultants are going to need to look at in the feasibility study.
Because I can imagine Ludham's would be sediment-wise, that'd be an easy one. Easy, it's big.
Right.
It's going to be a lot easier to deal with that.
And the levels are much lower, so there isn't, as of now, as much concern.
Right.
So we also need to understand if we can identify any markers, the sediment downstream to factory pond or not, and kind of what that means. So there's a lot of that will be, it's a weird time, it's an interesting time to do education and outreach now because we don't have any answers, right? We're basically saying we don't have answers, but this is what we're looking at and this is why it's important.
Now, in terms of funding, you've got the funding for up to the feasibility study.
Yep.
What about the design, engineering, permitting, and construction? From whence shall those funds come?
So there is still money, a good pot of money in the Natural Resource Damages Fund that we hope to use and use to leverage other funds. Again, there's a lot of funding for habitat restoration. We will probably need the towns to kick in some money at that stage, but it depends on what the numbers are. We just don't know yet. And, this dam removal is going to look a lot different than the Ludham's Ford Dam removal. So I just don't know yet what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that you can try to keep the lines of communication open well in advance, because what I'd really like to do is have all three towns prevail upon their state representatives, DeCoste and Cutler,
Okay.
To get state funding for this.
Okay.
But in order to do that, it's a glacial pace that these things move. So you'd need to let us know a good year in advance
Okay.
of when you'd need that funding. And then I think we could work with those folks and and in addition, Senator Brady, to see if they could get an earmark for the towns to get that paid for. Because I don't think, you just heard us debating the cost of a transfer station. So
Sure.
we're not flush with funds.
Absolutely.
So-
Which is the beauty of this fund, the Natural Resource.
Yeah.
But it makes this process unique in that there is a pot of money that we can already are getting some money from, and we know we can use and leverage for other funds as well. Okay, yeah, no, definitely. My goal here is to be as transparent as possible and come before you as often as possible.
Just want the,
Yeah.
Mr. Melisi.
Yeah, so sorry, I just had a question. So, one question is, people who hunt fish, they pay for licenses and things like that to restore natural habitats. Do you guys get to use any of those monies to restore the fishing habitats in the rivers from the Mass Fish and Wildlife?
Not that I know of. I mean, not in this case.
Okay,
Not
so
currently.
they spend a lot of money stocking the pond and trout and
Yeah.
things like that. So, one of the reasons that people pay for those tags, and they actually just increased them this year, is to restore habitat in ponds and so
It may be
So
state-owned,
right
Frank,
now-
I don't know.
Yeah.
it should.
It may only go to, I don't know, with the.
So like, I know
I was
for,
gonna say, like funding
Yes.
source, you guys haven't looked at it before.
Sure.
And then the other thing is, would this fall under infrastructure? The state's getting a bunch of money.
so it could, but it depends, I don't know like what your priorities might be. And the infrastructure would probably go towards fixing the dams, not towards removing them. And that doesn't, we're trying to take a holistic look at the whole river and not, we could just fix the fish ladder, but that only helps the fish, potentially helps the fish that swim upstream. It doesn't help any of those other issues. So, that the infrastructure money wouldn't pay for removal typically. So I know like DMF, they do a lot of surveys, and they do a lot of work on the Ludham's Ford Dam. So my guess is that the fees go to that. So once we have a better sense of costs for the next step, that would be definitely something to look into. Is there any money in that pot that we could put towards it, or maybe towards certain parts of it, or restocking, or whatever?
Yeah, they do a lot of sea-based fisheries as well.
Yep.
They're really concerned about striper populations and
Yep.
things like that. This seems to fit right in task with, restoring those populations like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Becky, and I apologize, I heard you say Hanson, Pembroke, and there was a third town?
Hanover. So Hanover and Hanson co-own the State Street Dam, and Pembroke and Hanover co-own the Ludham's Ford Dam.
Okay, so it does work out that it would be DeCoste and Cutler. I thought that there, we might have needed another rep.
Right.
But no, that works out great.
And then the last thing here is just where we are in this specific, drill down the timeline of this study a little bit more. We just selected the project engineers at the end of last month. We're gonna have a public information session at the end of this month, and I'll get that information to you that will have the consultants on it, myself, we'll have a couple people from the state, but the goal really is to keep the presentation short and have a lot of time for Q&A. And then over the course of the spring and the summer, I plan to do a lot of community events, walks at both of these sites, as well as walks in some other towns where they have removed the dams. People can get a sense of what it looks like, talk to residents, connecting select boards, connecting Concoms, connecting historical commissions between the three towns and also in some of the other towns that have gone through this process to get some feedback. And then our goal is to have a decision made by the towns in early 2024. The thinking of the steering committee would be that would mainly potentially fall at the select board, but that will be up to you if you want that to be your decision or not once we have the information. So once the study is completed in September, there'll be another very large round of outreach, these types of meetings. We'll have another info session when we have the answers to be able to share that with people so that people can make an informed decision over the coming months. That's it.
Well, this is great. Did anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Hill?
I just know, do you know approximately when these dams were installed?
So the first iterations of them, 1700s, 1800s,
Yeah.
Ludham's Ford the concrete structure that's there now was 1906, I think, early 1900s. It likely went over another concrete structure, which probably went over the rocks to the timing.
Yeah, the reason I asked is it says when you, with the slide you have that said fish population's in trouble.
Yes.
It says that the fish population was as high as it could be in the 60s.
Right, exactly.
So this is well after these dams were in
But
place.
she mentioned that there are other factors that are affecting the fish population that aren't the dams.
Right, fish.
I mean, the sheds still run.
So they've done some electrostatic surveys, and they actually haven't seen any, now, they haven't, those surveys that look for.
Them down there.
So that's what I was gonna say next. So, but we just had a meeting with Trout Unlimited,
Yeah.
and they were saying they've seen a couple.
Yeah.
But there aren't enough to
run.
provide.
No, there's not a lot, but they did used to run, and as a matter of fact, it's funny, there's a black-crowned night heron that shows up every year on East Washington Street, where that comes from here.
Well, you know I'm gonna be
Yeah.
there now that you've said
He's
this.
there I don't know, it's gonna be when they run, and he sits there and he waits for him.
And he waits for him.
It's the funniest thing.
That's great. Yeah, it's my understanding the last couple years haven't been great. I mean, aside from all the rain we've gotten, the
Nothing's
flows in the
been
rivers
great.
just aren't great. Right, exactly. Everything is changing. Hydrology is changing. So the goal would be, that we would have much larger runs once these dams are removed.
Because I'm thinking about, I happen to spend a lot of time at Rocky Run. I go up and down that part of the river from Ludham's Ford up to Rocky Run, on State Street all the time. And there's a lot of water there. It seems like they could get through there. It would be Ludham's Ford site that's
the first step.
The biggest impediment there. But then, where do they go? I mean, they can't go into Factory Pond.
So they'll get as close as they'll get to where they can get.
And they are.
And they'll have a lot more space up there.
They'll have
and the temperatures are
their eggs up in
different.
there.
Yeah,
all right.
if enough of them can get up there.
Right.
To procreate.
I wonder how wide State Street's pond will be.
So that's the big question. Yeah, and that's what we'll find out as a result of this study. It's something that I did mention, they'll do something called a hydrologic and hydraulic study to understand how water levels will change, how the impoundment outside of Adams Circle, what will that look like? And how will the impoundment in the park, what will that look like?
Any other questions? Mr. Hickey?
Becky, I have a couple. So we get rid of the State Street Dam, and it can only go so far. So,
What do you mean it can only go so far?
would it end up back in the ocean?
Yes, well, if we remove both,
Okay.
that's the goal, to
And then,
reconnect from.
is it a
Factory
straight
Pond.
line, or are there other towns that would have to cooperate?
No, these are the first two dams up from the ocean. So removing these two will go straight open
Okay.
to the mouth of the North River and to the ocean.
Because the slide or the, on your presentation where the fish haven't increased since, I think, 2007,
Yes.
this would take care of that, or partially.
Well, hopefully. I mean, we'll see. You usually start to see fish come back in 6 to 18 months. So we won't know right away. But it should hopefully take care of some of this piece. But again, that slide I feel like is a little confusing because it's not just this fishery. So it's showing impacts on ocean fisheries and rivers as well, and the whole East Coast. So we should see those numbers go up.
Right.
I can't make
But
any
by
guarantees.
doing something like this, you get rid of the sediment in the bottom of
Yep.
these rivers.
Yep.
And you get rid of whatever was underneath that. And then you put a larger fish population that is going to end up back in the ocean so that they can actually be, fished by fishermen.
Or a larger, healthier fishery in general, and everything that supports, both up
Right.
and down the fish chain,
Okay.
food chain.
Becky, one thing.
Sure.
If you're at all interested,
Yes.
I can find them on my phone, not tonight, but I will find them, and if you give me an email address.
Yeah.
I have pictures of that stretch right there, just south of the State Street Bridge.
Okay.
With very little water in it. You can see there's foundation down there,
Yeah.
from the big factory. If you want it, I
love that.
you can see the way it was laid out. My
That'd be
son
great.
and I were cavorting down there taking pictures, because you could never get there. The drought, what was it, 2 summers ago? Yeah, it was bad.
Oh,
Yeah, I was out there this August, and it was very, very low, but I don't think it was that low. Yeah, I'll get your email from Lynn.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Well, keep up the good work, Becky. So much of what everybody loves about Hanson and the surrounding towns is all of the wonderful, ponds and natural, resources that we have, and if we don't keep them up, we won't have them for much longer. So we appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing.
Great, thank you. And if you think of any groups, any people, anybody else that I should be talking to specifically?
Have you talked to Green Hanson at all?
Not yet. So I've been doing the boards and committee outreach now, and next are organizations, Green Hansons, all of those.
And conservation, have you?
So I've done Concom's, planning boards, open space, historical commissions, and
All
select
right.
boards.
All right, great.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the cord.
All right, next up, if you don't mind, Mr. Melissi, we're just gonna take, the adding, Steve, are you here for the adding employee attendance to pay stubs? No, okay, all right. Well, then we're gonna just take, Mr. Melissi's, it's not specifically you, but it definitely has your name all over it. Establish a new recreation committee. So,
I thought it was the cable one.
at the, okay, yes. Well, it's coming. You're probably here for 5 or 6 of these articles. We'll just keep chugging along here. At our strategic planning session that we held last week at Camp Kiwanee, which was in attendance by department heads, committees, members, and a variety of other people. It was a wonderful group of talented individuals getting together to start having a conversation about solving some of the seemingly unsolvable problems that we've got. One of the things that came up, in which Mr. Melissi has spoken to us about in the past, was this notion that now that we have the Camp Kiwanee committee, the group that's responsible for Camp Kiwanee, we actually need a committee that is responsible for recreation. And we used to call the folks responsible for Camp Kiwanee the Recreation Committee, and you could see, commission, and you could see how that would cause a great deal of confusion. So I think we just need to have a vote to establish the Recreation Committee, and then we need to have a conversation about what should the composition of that committee look like. Is there anybody who's opposed to creating a Recreation Committee? Okay. What do people think we should have for a composition on this committee? What should that look like?
And I know other people have more things, but this is the committee, they're not necessarily a commission. To me, this is a preliminary before it might turn into a commission, but it's more to set up.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this would be the, I don't know what we want to call, sort of like a recommending committee to talk about the recreation committee and what it would look like?
Yeah, I think
Is that what people were thinking?
All right, I missed something. There's a difference between a committee and a commission.
Yes.
What is it?
I really couldn't tell you, but for instance, like the Conservation Commission has got like a specific, I don't know, it's the way that they're charted, but I don't really know the exact,
Okay, so it seems like we're going to form a committee that'll form a commission.
Well, or maybe form a committee. Do we need to have a committee to form a committee? I feel like I've entered some level of insanity.
I'm not committee to committee, I'm committee to commission.
As a proponent for very small government, I do not suggest you make a committee.
Okay, that sounded a little, wackadoodle to me, but I'm like, maybe I missed that part of the conversation at the strategic planning session. Yes, Mr. Weeks.
To try to focus myself here, so are you looking for a motion to establish a recreation committee tonight, and then how does that play into this packet here? Because the agenda says to establish a new recreation
committee. Where that
committee.
came from.
Yeah, because if we're going with this, which might be a great first draft, there's lots of things in here that should change. So I would lay on the table a motion to establish a new recreation committee.
Yeah, okay, but so this
is a commission.
this was the former Recreation Commission.
This looks like it was just a draft for the
Policies and procedures.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that does not apply to.
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with tonight?
No.
If I may, through you, Madam
Please,
Chair.
yeah.
So forming the Recreation Commission as however many members you see fit. At that point, that recreation committee would be there to establish the policies and procedures that we had for Camp One, kind of like what we had for Camp One. We had a list of policies and procedures for, but that's a very long list that has to do with all the camping.
Right, this has got with Cranberry Cove and, yeah.
The Recreation Commission policies and procedures would be more of a, I don't want to call it a manifesto, but like a manifesto of sorts of what this recreation committee would be chartered with doing. It would be chartered, that's a better way of putting it. It would be chartered to see what it's supposed to do in town and keep to that charter, kind of like their bylaws and how they do it, right? That was, I actually have to get you guys the new copy of that.
Yes.
We changed it over because it's now the Camp Planning Commission.
Right.
And you guys need to approve the new policies and procedures.
Yeah.
The only thing that changed that was the new, so.
Yeah, this definitely would not, so honestly,
kind of
I think we
strange.
just need to establish the committee, and as part of establishing the committee, their first order of business would be to come back to us and tell us, like we should give them a vision, which is, we want you to come back to us with programs, but what we want to do is establish a committee who's going to be responsible for town-wide recreation. That's their goal, that's their task. And how they do that, I don't know. I mean, in my ideal scenario, I think to myself, gee, it should really be a cross-pollination, right? There should probably be somebody from maybe like the sports groups, and maybe somebody from Camp Kawani, and maybe Mary Collins, and maybe somebody from the library, and then some members at large. But this is just me, because I'm trying to figure out, if you have a committee that's responsible for all the recreation in town, how are they going to really do that if we don't have all of the other groups represented that are doing something with recreation in town? There has to be some kind of a communication.
Right.
Thoughts?
Definitely, you get
Yeah,
huge.
lay it on me.
Might we want to look at other towns, see what they have for a mission statement for their recreation committee, and to see what their policies and procedures are, and kind of maybe merge it together.
Okay.
I mean, I think, and it's a great suggestion, but let's say the library, they do their own thing, and they would be able to use the rec commission for those events that they do. Now, I would think the rec commission would want to, if, they got, or somebody knew somebody and they got an author, and then use the library for that particular thing. The camp has trivia night run by the library or sponsored by the library. I mean, I'm sure that would continue. But would you go to the rec committee for that? Probably not.
You really wouldn't have to.
No, I'm not
Right.
suggesting the rec committee has to approve everything. Everybody would keep doing what they're doing, that like seniors and the library and the Camp Kawani guys, but they would bring it to the table of the recreation committee and say, hey, we've got this going on. All right, guys, let's look at across the town. You know where we've got a gap? October, we've got nothing going on. Does the recreation committee want to put something on in October? Because there's nothing going on in October.
Right, and that could be something as simple as, we'll just say a 50s dance.
Yes.
For 21 and older, or whatever the age is going to be. So you would want that committee to contact Camp Kawani committee to see if we can see if this event could be held there. And if the dates don't match up, you could always look for somewhere else or change the date. So I would first think we would need to establish what their mission statement is going to be.
So,
I'm wondering if we should set up, I'm hearing more people say commission than committee. I'm wondering that the wording, I like commission better, but that's just me. I don't know if we
Commission
decide that.
seems to roll off on certain committees.
Recreation Commission rolls off
Commission
better than
is
any committee.
more fully empowered. I don't want to say they're more standalone. Committee is reporting back to the select board.
Oh, okay. Given that, I would do the committee then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lisa, do you think you could do a little reconnaissance for us and take a look at some of the surrounding towns and whether they've got a commission or a committee and what the goals of those are and kind of how they operate? I do think we need a little bit more information. If we're going to appoint people to committee, I'd like to have a little more fully formed vision for those people that we might be appointing. Because right now, if we throw it out open and say, oh, we've got vacancies on the Recreation Committee, we really can't clearly articulate what it is that we're expecting people to do. That seems a little nonsensical, so.
Farmers market.
Right.
But
But
I mean,
there are
yeah, yeah.
people that might have an interest, they might not be runners, and they might be football players, and they might be, are we at, you could say, okay, want some of the library, somebody from here, somebody here, you're gonna have 30 people on the committee. That's my concern. That was why I was hoping to have the groups of the committee, then the commission could be a different group, but maybe just,
All right, well, we'll see what Lisa comes
Yeah.
back with. Do
Yeah.
people feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the main thing is, from the strategic planning session, I don't want us to lose momentum. From when we met originally back in November to when we just met, we did accomplish some things, but we did not accomplish as much as I would have liked, because frankly, I'm never happy with that stuff. So I wanted to accomplish more. And so I want to hold us accountable and make sure that each of those subcommittees we're accomplishing some of the things we talked about. It doesn't have to be everything, but some, so when we get back together the next time, we're not all like, oh, gee, we really didn't do anything since we met in March. Let's do something now. I want to just keep moving this ball, even if we're inching it forward, I just want to move it forward a little bit. Okay. And then we kind of jumped around just a little bit. Discussion on regional school district agreement.
I got it.
Oh, yes.
Can we back up here?
Mrs. Rain, yes.
Are we finished with item 5?
Well, what we'd said is we're going to have Lisa do a
Lisa's
little
gonna- okay, all right,
reconnaissance, and
okay,
then we'll vote on
got
what
it,
we're going to
okay.
do. If you guys are okay with that. Everybody copacetic?
so we're not doing
Okay.
any voting on anything.
No, we're not
Just-
voting on
How's the
anything.
regional school?
So, regional school district agreement. Ms. Green or Mr. Hickey, which of you would like to give us the good news?
Well, I missed the last meeting, when this was put together, but I can talk about, quite a bit of the other stuff on here, if anybody has any questions. I'll start right away, with the 2/3 vote. That was brought up by me, and the reason being, I wanted to keep it simple, where everything that the school committee would vote on, like us, we just make it a 2/3 vote. So that they didn't have to put in the agreement distinguishing from budget situations to, supplies or whatever, or any costing situation. For me, the simpler the better, and it was just all votes. We got into a discussion about, would it be 7 out of 10? And if only 9 people showed up, is it still 7? The discussion on each thing itself is taking longer than it needs to, I think. But for the 4 voting members and all the people there, we're trying to get this done right. Because it took, 26 years, Laura, when I was a selectman for about 5 minutes, and they appointed me on that committee. And that committee took over a year because it was only meeting once a month.
And we didn't get anything done.
Yeah. And then we got through it, and then at the last minute, it was not approved by the Whitman selectmen at the time. And that is when the whole statutory method came to light, and the town administrator from Whitman had said that had been the only real vote with the 6-4 decision, with the voting members going from which town they belong to. My reasoning for the 2/3 vote is that if you truly are a school committee member and that you're truly for the district, you'll vote what is best for the district, not what town you have an alliance to. And it's very hard, for me, not to have an alliance for Hanson, but we have to make sure that the kids are getting the education they deserve. And by doing that, I believe if 10 members of the school committee are doing their job, then votes would be 8-2, 9-1, 10-0. If they're not, it's 6-4.
Right, it should be, the decision should be blind as to the financial impact to which town. It's, you know.
Correct.
So now, so I think we had all agreed that we thought the 2/3, and I think we had told you that's what we really were hoping you were going to push for. Is there any consensus on this regional agreement committee about that? Is there any support for that?
There seems to be some support. Again, with only 4 voting members, everyone is taking it back to their committees. So, and it would work, vice versa. If Whitman had proposed something, it would either have to be Chris or I to side with Whitman, or we get into a 2-2 stalemate, and we have to work it out. The reason, not to go back to the 2/3, but in the last page of the handout, is actually what the state and DESE tells you what you can do for school committee members. There's 5 different things, and basically they would all take forever. So the easiest solution for that was a 2/3 vote on every vote. Moving on to some of the other stuff, it's basically language. The contract itself is 32 years old, 31 years old. So, certain, like deductibles were moved up from 5,000 to 10,000. And we spent a lot of time discussing this because they're really concerned about getting the language correct. And it came down to what constitutes an emergency and who would pay for that. Again, I spoke on that, which is really great. I mean, everybody's putting in their 2 cents and what they believe. And, for me, what constituted an emergency was if the students or faculty safety is a concern. It's that simple.
Yeah.
For me. But the language in the contract has to be written in such a way that it is acceptable for everyone. And, obviously if school was closed because of an emergency, then that's it right there, because the students or faculty would, their safety would be, jeopardized if they actually used the school. And I think Lisa would agree that there are some other things in there, but it's mostly language.
So what's a couple questions, with the departure of Mr. Howard, do you think that this will be wrapped up before Mr. Howard leaves?
It wouldn't be just on the basis that it would have to go in front of each of the boards. School board first, each select board. Then it goes to DESE. Then it comes back, and I believe I have the order right, to town meeting. Then it goes to the commissioner of schools.
Right.
So even if we get it before, Chris is gone, before I'm gone, even if we get it to that point, it's still
There's still steps, but
a year to 18 months
you make a
away.
good point, because both of the people representing Hanson are not going
right.
to be elected officials
And
by the, yeah.
even though Frank Lyman, the interim town administrator and past town administrator from Whitman, is already gone. And that's why I made a point that it has to be reviewed. It would be in the agreement that the select boards from both towns would appoint someone that 3rd year in September, along with the school committee, to review it. And it could be as simple as 2 meetings to say, no, everything looks fine. I think we should keep it going. But if
Who's
the-
going to be responsible for reminding people that they need to do that? Because this is all great while it's fresh in our minds.
Right, but it would be up to the school committee
Okay.
to remind both town administrators to, talk to the chair to get it on the meeting. Because I really believe that has to be done because it's 31 years.
I think you need to put that into the agreement, though, because I'm reading the language, and I mean, I'm just quickly looking at it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't put the onus on the school committee to remind the boards.
And I think that's the best way to.
Oh, I agree, but maybe
operate that
consider
section.
adding some language in there that,
And that comes with part of the language.
all right.
I'm not sure, Lisa, if you want to speak on transportation or.
So,
You can
with
just shake the head if I'm
transportation, that we basically, that was discussed in depth over many meetings, because it's such a big part of, the budget, and you've got two different variables. You've got mandated busing and you've got non-mandated busing. With mandated busing being a certain mileage from schools, non-mandated busing, basically outside that mileage. There is no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no reimbursement from the state for non-mandated busing. So all of that costs, all of the weight of those costs for non-mandated busing falls on the towns. With mandated busing, there is a percentage that is reimbursable. So as the committee left it, we're going to look very closely. Whitman is highly, a resident in Whitman is highly in favor of going to an all mileage base formula for figuring out costs.
Which shifts how much more to Hanson?
Well, it's unknown. We don't have an exact amount on that yet.
But it is not
because
financially advantageous to Hanson.
Right, but when you
And
look
this would be a perfect example of the 2/3 vote.
Right, well, the resident
in the
is
tune of
not a member of the school
300,000.
committee.
That's what I thought.
That's saying how, in favor this person is of that formula. Because in Hanson, we have a lack of sidewalks, so pretty much all of our students are bused. And then that kind of circles back with the presentation that Jeff made at the school committee meeting a few weeks ago, where he presented a formula where all students are bused, no matter what their distances from the schools. And he came out, there was a formula that did not impact Hanson tremendously in the finance. I don't have that presentation with me. We'd have to review it, but it's a very it's a difficult and complex area to kind of come up with something exact, because pretty much the 1991 agreement and then the 2018 agreement, which is there in language but it's not an executed agreement, basically put the cost of busing onto both towns. There's really no language that distinguishes between if it's a special needs student or homeless student or students going to the vocational high school or agricultural high school. It's just all kind of one umbrella, under one umbrella. So if you look at what we've got for consensus, under transportation, it's blank because there's still work to be done on transportation. I brought up the question of, so the Rainham Bridgewater Regional School District eliminated non-mandated busing completely. If you live outside the mileage, you're on your own, basically. And I asked, as a result of that, what impacts have they seen on the schools? Have they seen an increase in absenteeism? Have they seen an increase in tardiness? Or anything like that is directly a result of eliminated non-mandated busing? And they were going to reach out to other districts to see if they have eliminated the non-mandated busing, what impacts they saw because of it.
Well, so not only do you have this potential shift in allocation of those costs, I think there was also a discussion of an earlier start time, which also increases the busing cost by, it was an astronomical amount. At least what I heard Jeff say at one of the meetings was like astounding. And again, I'm not refuting the science, but I hate to bring up the impolite subject of a budget. And we do have one, and we've got competing needs. And so I think if they are going to shift start times, I hope that would be a dialogue and just not a decision that's made overnight that's going to impact us so drastically. So, all right, so more on that, I guess?
More is to come, yes, there's still more work to be done on transportation.
All right, anything else to add to that?
No.
Okay, all right, any questions?
I have a question
Mr.
about
Gill?
the two-thirds vote thing. I understand that it's, the school committee is voting for what's best for the student, but there are a lot of items that we're discussing even tonight where it doesn't change what affects the students, it's who pays for it.
Exactly.
You're talking about the busing. The 6 to 4 is gonna happen because as far as the busing goes, each town is gonna vote for what's best for the town. And there's 2 or 3 other things that have been mentioned today that do not affect the students or the students' education. It affects who pays for it, and those are gonna be right down town lines.
That's why we're trying to get to a happy medium with this, Ed. Since we became a regional school district, Hanson has always bused every kid to school. Whitman, because of their location where the school is, and where other schools are, they don't have to, and they've chose to use 1.5 miles. If you live within 1.5 miles, you're not getting bused to school. So this is one of the concerns of this committee, and I would hope it's a concern of the school committee, just because, that's part of a student thing. Now, obviously, we've already been doing it. We've already paid all of the non-mandated busing because it's been Hanson's choice. So even part of this discussion is, as it says there, that the school committee will take care of that. I'm not sure I want them to, because I know I don't want them to change it that if a kid lives within 1.5 miles of a Hanson school, they're going to have to walk. So these are all the things that we have to get down. I understand where you're coming from with the budget, but as a school committee member, because I was going in there, and, I know I did the deregionalization feasibility committee, but I was going in there with an open mind and what is best for the district. And when I say district, I really mean the students. The school's going to get their money, but how do we take care of the kids?
I still piggyback on what we've been saying this whole time, which is I don't understand the roadblock between passing at 2/3. So I really am interested in what if any pushback will be at this point. I'm happy to see this, that people are talking about it. I know they said that there's not a lot of controversial votes, and that's what's led to this. But if we're truly talking about collaboration, if there truly isn't that many controversial votes that would result in anything less than a unanimous decision, 2/3 is actually a lower threshold. So.
Well, Joe,
It makes even
in
more
the
sense.
spirit of transparency, Whitman loses their edge. Any vote that comes in 6 to 4, where 6 Whitman School Committee members vote for it and 4 Hanson vote against it, they're not doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And and the way the statutory method was brought on to us, although a little unfair, Hanson members had no choice but to turn it down or vote against it. Statutory is here to stay. It is.
Yeah.
But there's a potential of a swing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not this year, not next year, maybe 10 years from now. And I would hope the school committee members, if the statutory method is in place, it's not even a vote. It's already in place. It just goes the other way.
Yeah.
Just expand a little on what you mean by a swing, because of the building that's happening in Whitman.
Everything that's going on in Whitman right now with the lack of Hanson building.
Right.
That there is a possibility, we'll say 10 years from now, that this statutory method could swing. to Whitman's side.
Yeah.
Where they would actually pay more and Hanson would pay less. And, you know, I know there's a lot of land in Hanson and we're trying, you know, to comply with the, you know, the affordable housing and stuff, but it's not that simple.
No.
And in 10 years from now,
Yeah,
hopefully we've moved, you know, closer to that, but, so, you know, that's why I was trying to make it simple, but the statutory method's not going away.
Well, to me, that's the most simple, most logical, most collaborative way of moving forward. That's actually, in my opinion, the least, the least controversial. I would just say, because if people are truly believing in collaboration, if people on these committees, whatever committee it is, if they truly believe in collaboration, if they truly believe we're a partnership, then they're not going to just say that as a bumper sticker when the cameras are on and when we are recording these things. This 2/3 vote is a very easy decision. If you truly mean that you want to be collaborative in this agreement, if you truly mean that you are wanting to do what's in the best interest of the students and the taxpayers in both towns, this to me is the simplest, easiest, least controversial, most common sense vote that could possibly take place. And it should be one of the many unanimous votes that have been continuously cited as a common practice on any committee. So I would just say that, again, this needs to be voted in because it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yep.
So in the spirit of collaboration,
And you
I
put
really
it-
hope everyone's making the right decision.
You put that in a great way, so I may have to write that down and quote you at our next meeting.
All right, any further discussion on that? All right, thank you for the update, Mr. Hickey and Ms. Green. And with that, we are going to, so that Mr. Melissi can get home in the inclement weather that we have, we're going to quickly move to appointments. And we've got appoint Frank Melissi as a member of the Cable and Internet Committee. Did anybody need to know Mr. Melissi's credentials, or?
I would just make a motion, we appoint him to all of them.
And then second,
You just come in and tell us which ones you don't want to be on, because the list will be shorter and it'll save us a heck of a lot of time.
Okay, so you moved and Mr. Hickey seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, and appoint Carlos Caldas as a member of Cable and Internet. As you recall, he was the gentleman who came when we had the folks from Cable here, and he's very passionate. And I believe we had
I know him very well.
bumped him off of the committee unwittingly and unwillingly.
I know him very well, I can vouch for him, I make a motion to appoint him.
so moved.
So you were seconding?
Oh, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then Chief Mix had put in and appoint Richard Bakarian as a full-time police officer in the town of Hanson. I will entertain a motion.
So,
Second.
Okay, with an effective date, I believe Chief Mix told me it was Monday, March 20th.
Yes, correct.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great.
Can I
Yes,
go back just one, how many people are on the cable?
we said there were gonna be three.
Three,
So we
okay,
have
good.
one more opening.
Okay.
And
Thank
poor
you.
Mrs. Rain is gonna have to keep reading about the opening until somebody applies. So if you're out there and you're complaining about cable, or, I mean, if you're happy with it, that would be great too.
Yeah.
But if you're complaining about it, or you have an opinion, or you think we could do better, we would encourage you to apply. Look under employment, volunteer opportunities on the town website. And fill that out, get it to the lovely and talented Miss Lynn McDowell, and then we will get you on our appointments for one of our future meetings.
Why are we not advertising that? We were doing
It should
that
be
in
on
our
the
announcement. It wasn't on our announcements.
Lisa, can we make sure that Lynn adds that to our announcements? Okay, great. And that moves us to discuss adding employee attendance to pay stub. Ms. Green.
Yes. All right, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. So we have an opportunity to better keep track of employee attendance, and also to help the employees be able to keep track of attendance. We have an opportunity where we can have the company that is handling our payroll will put on an employee's pay stub their time that they have, as far as vacation, sick time if they're not an employee that has unlimited, floating holidays, personal days. So as they use time, it will show up on their pay stub, and then it'll show what time they have left on the pay stub. And there is a little copy in your packets of what it would look like.
And does it get populated at the beginning of the fiscal year with what the employee starts with? And then if so, who is doing the data input for what has been used and what hasn't been used?
So it goes by the employee's anniversary date, because that's when their vacation time and personal days are loaded. The payroll company, what we do is we send them copies of the contracts so that they can look at the time off, and then they will be sent the employee's start date, and then they will calculate the time, and then it will populate upon the anniversary date of the employee.
And what if somebody fat fingers that? What if somebody what if the company loads in the wrong information, or somebody fat fingers what the start date was, and I'm like, wow, I got another 4 weeks worth of vacation, I had no idea. How are we gonna handle that?
We have our assistant treasurer who puts in the payroll, so hopefully she would catch a mistake like that. I would depend on hopefully the employee would come forward and say, there's an error on my pay stub.
I'd like to think we have policies and procedures
There's
that
also,
would address this.
Ms. Green, I think Mr. Weeks was picking up what I was putting down, which is that I think that we need to have a very clear policy that states that in no event would something that appears on a pay stub supersede what is actually in the contract and what you would otherwise be due.
oh, right.
Yep.
Where does this, so that their initial numbers get put in automatically, and then they take a sick day? So that goes to the assistant account, the town account, that we send it to them? Like how, like is it,
Yeah, what's
is there
the
more
process?
paperwork? What's the
Yeah.
process to get that on there?
So you mean to start this process?
Not to
Or
start it,
the
if I take a
employee-
sick day, how does it get to here on my pay stub?
So, right now, employees, department heads submit a payroll, a timesheet that will have that time on it. So it's submitted to accounting, and then it's submitted to payroll. And then payroll keys that all in.
So it's up to payroll to update the numbers?
They will put in the date, the time off, and then it will update on the pay stub.
And have we talked to the parties that are involved, namely accounting and payroll?
Yes,
To
yeah.
make sure they understand and they agree that this is something?
Yes, I did have a conversation with our treasurer collector and assistant treasurer about this process. There's no additional cost to implement this process. And then what we would do is, our thought is to do it on a staggering basis, just to allow the assistant treasurer the ability just to learn the system. So we would start off maybe with the highway department and the administrative professionals unit. We'd start off with that. And then if fire and police want to join in, we would add them afterwards, because they have a little bit more of a complex system. But we would stagger it, and then we'd put the department heads in there, so it would be a phased system. So it's not all on top of that one employee at once.
Mr. Weeks?
I love this idea because in my professional life, it's always hard to keep track of accruals that you have.
Yeah.
So to me, it's an easy way of just kind of looking at it, trying to plan for the future. So to me, this makes complete logical sense. As far as the agenda goes, it says adding attendance to the check. So is this referred to as attendance, or are we talking really about adding their accruals to their timesheet? Because I just don't want people to get the wrong impression that we're putting up when they're clocking in and when they're clocking out on their paycheck.
Yeah, no, it's their
It's referred
accrued
to
time
as-
off.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're talking
accrued,
specifically
yeah.
about accrued time off, not
Accrued
just
time off,
attendance in general.
Not just attendance, exactly.
Okay. And then I think that, before you roll this out, I do think that people should, as a best practice, have a policy in front of them. So if we need to rewrite one or edit one, then so be it. before you roll it out, you give this to everybody, have them sign off that they've actually read it and received it and read it and understand it. And then you kind of move forward with who does what and where.
I agree 100% with that. I would also say that the department heads need to take some ownership as department heads. So to the extent that Gina and, who's our payroll?
Stacy.
Yes, Stacy Reed, I know that. To the extent that there should be like a preliminary report that they're giving to the department heads to verify that what they've put in is what the department head's understanding is of their staff, and what the vacation and sick time is that's allowed for that person. Yes, Mr. Weeks.
And lastly, one of the things I would say is, I don't know about this payroll system, but a lot of payroll companies, they have within their contract that they're willing to come out and do trainings. So if you are concerned that this is going to be fumbled or there's going to be a learning curve to it, I think you might want to have them reach out and come and do a training on it, make life easier.
Yeah, so the company that's doing this has been doing our payroll for quite some time.
Yeah,
So
but the
there's already a
contract-
good relationship there.
Yeah. More
so
often than not, they'll come out a couple times a year, though.
There will be
do
training
specific
involved,
trainings.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they'll physically come out and train, though.
Yes.
So.
I can double check, yes. Also too, with, talking about the accrual time off as well, Steve and I, we had a presentation today regarding time and attendance software that actually is hand in hand with this. It's interesting. It's almost identical to what we do now with our forms, but in electronic format, where it calculates. So say we have an employee that takes 2 hours of personal time. It calculates the 2 hours, and then it calculates how many hours they have left, or 2 hours of vacation time. So basically, they fill out their time off on this software that looks almost identical to our form, and they submit it. The department head gets an email that's done, they can go into the system, and then they can approve it, and then once that happens, it sends an email forward to me, or to me as the second approver. I can open it up, review it, and approve it. An email goes back to the employee with that information, and then the time is deducted from their accrual. It's really a very easy system, and they're going to provide our IT director with some pricing on this.
Okay.
But it's a very good way of eliminating papers and making sure that there's
my mind is blown that we're so paper intensive. It's just like crazy to me. When they provide pricing, Steve, are they going to provide maintenance? So there'd be the initial installation, whatever, and then ongoing maintenance.
Everything's all web-based. There really isn't any maintenance involved. I'm pretty sure the pricing will include any support.
Okay.
They will come out and train everybody, but it's pretty simple. And we can set it up so, users are not required to punch in or whatever. Like, it can pre-populate time for you, so if you're an 8 to 5 employee or whatever, it'll pre-populate 8 to 5 or whatever you want. And at the end of the week, we can choose it that way, or at the end of the week, we can choose to say, hey, just put in, your hours for the week, 8, 7 hours, whatever you did, put it in. The cool thing about it too is people can request time off in advance, right from the portal.
Yep.
And it's a calendar, so everybody knows what everybody has for a time off, and you can see how much time you have left, how much sick time you have, how much personal time you have left. Right now, it's kind of a guessing game. And I know having the accrual on the checks is nice, but it's not as up to date as this would be. This would be up to the minute.
So, I know one of the things that people have expressed a concern about up at Town Hall is having a calendar of who's out. So you're saying this would allow us to produce that? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so what happens is when an employee, when they request time off and it's approved by the approvers, it goes onto that calendar. So nobody has to go in and key it in. It goes onto that calendar. So there's a lot of checks and balances with it, so that everybody can see who, you know, a department head can see who, if another employee is off, or you know, double check things like that. But it's nice that it automatically goes onto a calendar. So if somebody happens to forget to put it on the calendar after they've been approved the time off, you didn't know that person was off. But in this case, when you fill out the sheet, electronically, it's approved by the department heads, approved by me, bang, it goes right onto that calendar.
Okay.
And it goes on saying, and it gives different colors of what kind of time off it is. If they're taking the whole week, it's a colored bar for the whole week. So it's a very good system, it's very easy.
All right, so we'll take that under, we don't have that really even on the agenda to discuss, but we'll take that as a vote when we post it, and when we've got some more intelligence on how much that will cost, right? Did you need anything other than us just agreeing that we want you to move forward with putting this on pay stubs?
We can do a vote just to keep it clean.
Okay, did anybody,
I can report that to Treasurer
entertain a
Collector.
motion to put the information that Ms. Green provided to us on employees' pay stubs?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. With that, we are moving on to discuss the select board town meeting warrant articles. And Ms. Green, did you have those too?
I do, yes. I didn't realize they weren't in your packet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Need to open it.
No, we never closed, the warrant's still open, technically, we never closed it. So, but we're about to in the next week or two. We've got to go through all the articles next week, and what's the date we have to close, Ms. Green?
Well, we have it on there for the agenda to close tonight, but we can close it next week as well.
I don't see how we can close it. I mean, there's like placeholders in here that haven't been filled out.
Right, well, that's why, yeah, that's what we're still waiting on
And
some
some cleanup
information,
that needs
so.
to be done, and I don't feel comfortable closing it in the condition that it's in presently. Does anybody feel differently? Okay, so let's get down to what we're posted to discuss is select board articles. So where would that first article be? I believe it's in the annual town meeting. And
There's still some work to be done. This is a work in progress, so there's still some work to be done. But let's see, the first articles that are always in are here.
well, can I be clear? Can I ask a clarifying question? What is the drop dead date that Beth needs to have us close the article in order for us to meet the timing required by town meeting?
We need to post it by April 11th.
Okay. Okay, so again, when you say post, is that to go to print by April 11th?
That's when she will need to give it to the constables to post
All right,
out
so
there.
it needs to have been printed, closed, signed, sealed, and delivered by April 11th, so the constables can deliver it?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time, but we've got a little bit of time. Okay, so if you are going to be looking for us to close the warrant at the next town meeting, at the next select board meeting, then I think you and Lynn have a lot of cleanup to do on this.
I've got Article 8 and Article 13. Why are there two separate articles that are kind of about the same thing? So it's all the underground detention, retention.
Oh,
Why are there two separate articles that are fairly identical?
What you saying?
8 and 13.
8 and 13.
8 and 13, are they really though? I'm not sure, I haven't read them, but,
They are. They get some different words, but they're basically the same thing. We're
Yeah.
talking- Hey, why are we duplicating that?
I also don't believe that that article is actually going to be, I thought the planning board had a different article that they proposed.
There's
Yes,
another
we were
duplication
hoping
here,
to
too.
have a meeting with the detention committee, that's not that anymore. But on this upcoming Friday, to discuss the planning board's recommendation. So
Okay,
this will probably change, and this is definitely duplicative.
right, but
Can we change it?
I was pretty clear with Mr. Howard, and I think also with Mr. Mansfield when he came. The proposal about the retention and detention needs to be supported by the planning board.
Right.
If it is not, this board is not a land use board, as we sit right here. And I'm not going to step into the shoes of a land use board and crunch people's toes that are a separately elected board. And I wouldn't do it to anybody else, whether they were elected or not. I really want to try to stay in our swim lane and not overstep. So that's my long-winded way of saying that unless the planning board submits an article about the detention and retention, which I thought they had, but I can't seem to find it. Is there one in here, Ms. Green?
I don't believe there is.
I did not see
I
it.
don't think there's one in here yet.
They had one up at their meeting yesterday for us
right.
to consider.
Maybe it hasn't come
But
into this,
I don't
into
think
this.
the clarity of what you just provided was understood yesterday, because it seemed like,
I've literally said it every time consistently that I
Yes, she
possibly
has.
so
could.
you wanted to come, it was written by Tony, but it seemed like it was gonna be submitted by the retention.
That is fine, but it
Okay.
has to be, I want a vote from the planning board.
Yes,
That
yes.
they support whatever it is that the drainage committee is submitting, to the extent that it is the planning board that will be the enforcing board.
Yes, that's how
It
it is.
seems only fair and reasonable
Yes.
to do that.
It's 18 and 20 of the other duplicates.
Okay, so if you guys are going to be meeting on Friday,
Yes.
and we're not meeting until Tuesday, I would just ask that you quickly, after your meeting, let Ms. Green know where you guys land on that.
Yep.
And we'll just tiptoe through the tulips on the Article 8. And Ms. Green, we do need to remove Article 13, because that's the exact same thing as 8. And then what were the other two,
The other one is
Mrs. Rain?
18 and 20, which I'm not saying that they're identical, but they're both about, first one's transferring $65,000 from the undersigned, so, and then there's Article 20.
What's the
Why
I
are
can
there
speak
two?
to that. So that's two different, so that's for the Cranberry Cove.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, both of them
It
are.
has to be two different meeting articles. One of them's for 65,000 for Cranberry Cove playground.
Yeah.
And the other one's for the 35,000 for the Cranberry Cove landscaping.
No,
No, it's
those
not.
are separate.
No, it's not.
No,
Those
that
are
goes
separate, but
This
there's
is
another
There's
70.
another-
$75,000
If they wanna
for the
give it to
purpose
them,
of
why not?
constructing a
What's the
playground.
dollar amount
So, okay,
for the,
so-
Which one's
for
right?
the playground?
65 or 75?
So the $65,000 is right for the.
All right, then we need to remove Article 20.
Article 20.
And then the landscaping portion of it.
Yeah, that's here too, yeah.
That's it. Those were submitted by Community Preservation. You've got 65 with an explanation, and you've got 35 for the landscaping with an
I
explanation.
submitted those on behalf of Community Preservation because they asked me to submit them on behalf.
I think Mr. Kemet also submitted
Oh, he
them.
did, okay.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Kemet,
So
who's
maybe
the
that's
chair
why
of
there's
Community
multiple.
Preservation. Yes.
If I may, Madam Chair, as well,
Yeah.
we had a couple, we have our capital improvement article that's going to be coming to you, or to Lynn rather, tomorrow, with the recommendations that we voted on there. We also voted on the recommendations for the school committee capital items, as the capital improvement phase met last night. There is a couple articles in your warrant right now that were submitted by a commission that the capital improvement committee did not recommend, but we put it on our matrix as not recommending it, and now it's come from the Mill Commission. So they put, I believe, 3 articles in there, one for $95,000, another for $45,000 as their own articles.
Those need to be struck. We're not going to be putting anything in that is not proposed, that is not supported all capital improvement articles need to be coming through capital improvements.
I appreciate that. So we put it on our town meeting article, and what it just simply says is that we don't recommend to fund it. Because we still want to give the citizens a choice to fund it if they want to, but it's going to come in as a whatever the vote was for it, and then at town meeting, if we, you know, as the chair, I stand up to pass over those particular line items.
No, we are not, what we cannot do is have a town meeting warrant that is going to exceed our ability to fund it.
Okay.
And if we do not stick with our checks and balances, one of which is Capital Improvement Committee, then we are going to spend ourselves into oblivion, and we cannot do that.
Okay.
So any capital improvement must come through capital improvement.
Okay.
That isn't to say that after you submit it to us, we might not have questions, and we might vote to not place it. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but I'm just saying that's our ultimate, ability to do that.
So what I'll do, since the capital improvement already voted that town meeting article last night, is I will submit that to you guys, and then you guys can feel free to remove the non-recommended items, recommended items on the capital improvement side of it.
So, Ms. Green, just to clarify here, we've got quite a bit of modifications. We've got we start with Article 10, 11, 12, 13. Then we go to Article 20, and that's all we've got so far. So if we can clean those up, and
Can I just?
the warrant was supposed to be closed 2 weeks ago. And I understand that we are a bunch of volunteers trying to do the best we can. But what happens when we kick the can down the road is Miss Green and Miss McDowell end up inheriting a nightmare trying to put together the warrant. And I mean this sincerely, Miss Green. We are not, other than what we had already talked to, we had already talked to Mr. Melissi, and we knew what was out there for that. Those conversations already happened. We're not accepting any more articles.
Okay.
And we need to stand firm on this, and we had this conversation after the last town meeting. Because it ends up being, it isn't best in show when we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then we're running around like maniacs trying to clean stuff up, clean up language, double check with Eric, double check on the budget. I'm saying this to you for your own self-preservation. We have to be firm about these deadlines.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is historically, we haven't been so firm about them, and so we've got people pushing it. And I think we know most of the more compelling things. So I'm telling you, other than what Mr. Melissi has articulated, and we've got a to-do from the Drainage Committee, which isn't, I know it's important to you guys, but it's not the end of the earth if it doesn't make it into the warrant.
Right, and it's the changing of one that was submitted on time.
Yeah, it's a modification.
Yeah.
But other than that, Ms. Green, I implore you to stand firm. All right, so I will step off of my soapbox, and then we can see what other articles we've got that are, was there anything else, Ms.
The only thing,
Ray?
I would really like to read it before it goes to print. For example, in Article 19, well, in the 18, we capitalized Camp Cranberry Cove, 19, we don't.
Oh, we're going through it all next week.
I know, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
My spelling, and I should honestly, I should have had my wife check. She did all my English homework in high school, so
I'm just saying. Because
Article
it
19 was Mr. Kevin's secretary.
Oh. Okay.
I know, right? You know what, you can.
Okay, Article 25, we're not going to entertain, that's already been crossed off. Let's see, Article 26, Development of a financial
Financial
plan.
plan.
Is this the John Madden
That is
plan?
the John Madden,
Okay.
yes.
Article 27, oh, that's conservation. Article 29,
You skipped 28.
20, well, these are, those are conservation,
Oh.
so I'm just trying,
Okay.
we're only supposed to be looking really at select board,
All right.
articles. Could you please explain to me, and I don't know if they're in here or not, but I think today you mentioned that Mr. Shav had submitted some articles today or yesterday?
Actually, these look like they're the same ones. Nope,
Are
actually,
they
hold on.
capital improvement articles?
Hold on, let's see.
Because I don't see the ones for the equipment that I know,
Oh, yeah.
that I know Mr. Melissi had mentioned to us before.
Yeah.
See, but isn't 29, 26 is an emergency thing, right? 29.
Yeah,
29.
But aren't we already doing that?
Transfers. Emergency repairs to pay for it.
yeah, I think he has to continuously replenish that dollar
Yeah.
amount.
So
And,
then-
15,
Well, 30, he's asking,
That's-
that fixing a roof isn't,
gravel.
that isn't capital improvement, is it?
fixing a roof?
Yeah.
Yes.
Article, is that capital improvement?
But does it exceed the dollar amount? No, it's not the dollar amount that you need for capital improvement, so
So-
that's probably why it's there.
Yeah, so the roof, it's already in here, so he submitted it again. And then, so the dump truck, I think that was,
That's on the,
is that on,
improvement. Yeah.
the dump truck is on the
I believe,
capital
yeah.
improvement.
It is on the capital improvement,
yeah.
but I don't see it in here. Do you see it, Ed?
No.
Hold on.
Well, you guys haven't submitted the capital
He
improvement.
said he was gonna submit
Yeah, Frank's
tomorrow,
gonna
yeah.
submit it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, what,
I'm
So that was
confused
it.
about Article 30. It's asking for $10,800, but then it says it's a $200,000 project. But I might just be missing something.
That's to replace the whole thing is 200 grand. But
yeah, so he's citing the 2014 Hanson Facilities Review, and then he's saying that they had
Okay.
quoted back then that a complete replacement would be 200,000. This is just a,
Okay.
patch
This is a
job.
patch job. Okay,
Just to, right.
okay.
And it is bad. Jameson mentioned that to me the last time I spoke to him. Okay. Are there any other articles that you guys would like to see in here? Do we need money appropriated for updating our personnel policies and procedures?
Oh, yeah.
We do. But we haven't gotten that in.
Okay,
In here.
I think we
Can you put
had
one in?
discussed that at our strategic planning session, that we needed that in here, so. And if there's any other burning things that you guys can think of, that we need to have included, then please let Ms. Green know, and we will discuss it at our next meeting.
And if I may too, Madam Chair, at the very end, on the last page of the warrant, you'll see there's an article there that was submitted by our town planner. It's it should be the very last page. So, he submitted that, it was a, once he read fully into the feasibility study, he needed to change some language in the article. That's why it's to me so late, but it is on the very it's stapled on the very
Right here.
last page.
Right here.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
it's like an extra.
So
It's an
that's
add-on.
it. We are
Okay.
going to feed it into the warrant, but that, it's there.
Okay, so if
So-
we want to move forward, we need to,
Yes, so.
okay. Need to see what kind of a legacy we have at the old highway building,
Yes.
which is legitimate.
I wanted to bring that to your attention, that it is there, it's.
I believe
on
he
the back, but it
also
will be
had
put in.
asked for a modest amount of $1,500 for the Economic Development Committee for the purposes of us working on marketing the town to attract businesses, and I don't see that in here.
Okay.
I think Tony sent an email last week about it.
To conduct marketing activities?
Yeah, we're gonna work with the Metro South Chamber of
Okay.
Commerce. And it was some of the stuff we talked about in the strategic planning session. And we we also want to send out a letter to all the businesses. Tony, I have to tell you, Mr. DeFrias is a gem. And he worked through all the various lists that he could get from the assessor and the town clerk, and he whittled it down to a list of Hanson businesses. And what we're going to do, the Economic Development Committee is going to send out letters to all of those businesses, letting them know that we are here and that we've got a manual for starting up a business and that we're going to revitalize the TIF committee, and to the extent that they want to improve upon their existing business or build a new business or any of the above, that we would like to work with them as a town to see what resources we could bring to bear. But the beginning of all of that is we need some money to write letters, mail those letters, and to work with Metro Chamber of Commerce.
We'll get that in.
Okay. Did anybody else have any other articles that they wanted to have in? Again, it's not speak now or forever hold your peace, but it's getting close. Any other discussion? Okay. All right, great. So do you feel like you've got clear guidance on what we've got so far?
Yes.
All right, excellent.
And then it says Board of Health.
Board of Health articles, we already discussed with Mrs. Panetti. And Ms. Green, that brings us to discuss rejection of the ARPA application for the Library Senior Center HVAC replacement, which you did mention to us at our last meeting.
Yes, so basically the Plymouth County ARPA pool of money has a threshold. So the amount for the HVAC system of the library and senior center is way underneath the threshold for approving that in advance. You have to reach $250,000 for them to be approved in advance. So what we have to do is basically treat it as a reimbursable. So we have to do the work first and then submit it to Plymouth County for reimbursement.
And we've got a firm price on that?
We have 3 quotes.
Okay.
But they're a little older, so now we have to get new update the quotes, but they shouldn't be much more than what we've got. The only issue is there's no guarantee, 100% guarantee, that when we submit this, it will be approved. We have Capital Strategic Solutions working with us to make sure the applications, the wording is correct and everything. There's never a guarantee. We want to just say that.
What state are we in there? Is it inoperable?
The
Something doesn't
HVAC
work.
system?
Yeah.
Well,
The AC doesn't work.
it's working, but it's not working well. The units over there are, geez, I haven't seen units that old in forever. It's an old system.
Isn't the AC?
I think it's the AC that's not working.
yeah, I think-
And
Yeah,
so they
the
kind of
AC
muddled
and-
through with the heat, but.
They muddle
yeah.
through it, but yeah, it's an older
Yeah.
system, that's tough to find parts to repair because the air handlers are very, very old.
How do
They're green.
All right, how do people feel? Because this is a bit of a gamble.
They have to have a
They do
properly
need to have,
functioning
they do
system.
need to
They
have that. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm nervous about
I know.
the fact we might not get reimbursed, but I guess we've done this with other grants, with conservation and other people that it's like,
We have to
you
take
know.
a chance.
So,
because-
Well, this is one of those things that regardless of reimbursement, it's a necessity.
It is.
We have to
Yes,
take
we
care of
have
it,
to
and if
do
we
it.
have to find money somewhere, we'll
It
find
is,
it.
and we've also talked about this being a heating and cooling center, you know, which we do
Yeah.
use it, you know, in the hottest blazing days and then,
Yeah,
and also, you know, look, we've got vulnerable population there and,
Right.
you know, it's a hub of activity. So, do you need us to take a vote?
Well, don't forget, we have the other pool of ARPA money that's already in the bank from the Treasury.
And that does not need the pre-approval?
That does not need the pre-approval. We can use that for any general government services.
So we've got a.
So we can use that money. We haven't used.
That's Plan B?
That's Plan B.
Okay.
That we go to the Treasury money.
And do we need a
So-
warrant, do we have this as a warrant article currently?
It's already been approved for ARPA through the October town meeting.
Okay,
So we
alright.
can just go to the Treasury money that we already have in the bank and use that money. We have to just make sure we do the reporting, but any general government service is what we can use this for. We can reason that it's for ventilation and,
Okay, but just to be clear, so you got rejected?
we got rejected by Plymouth County.
Okay.
Okay, that, we were gonna see if we could get, because we haven't used any of that
Okay,
money.
so town meeting in October, we voted to use ARPA funds. Did we distinguish which bucket?
No, I
No,
don't
we
think we
didn't.
did.
Okay, I didn't think we
But
did either.
there-
So now you basically want us to take a vote, even though town meeting, we didn't vote one way or the other which bucket. But we commonly understood that you would be taking it from the infrastructure bucket, we'll just call it that, the general infrastructure bucket. And now you want us to vote to take it from the other bucket. And how would you structure that motion, Ms. Green?
I'm looking for a motion to use the ARPA funds that were distributed to the towns through the Treasury portal that the town has in their possession that can be used for any general government services.
I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, great. All right, and then we've got Holy Apostles Parish reserving Town Hall Green for Saturday, October 14th for its annual public prayer. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, and we are on to accepting donations to the senior center. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We are on to accepting Brian O'Neill's resignation as public library custodian and accepting Malcolm Hessian's resignation as the senior center custodian. And by way of a little background, it is not, initially when I read this on the agenda, I thought, oh my word, have we got like a resignation protest thing going on? But that's not the case. It's that we are looking for a full-time custodian. Neither of these individuals is interested in full-time. So I will entertain a motion
So
to
moved
accept
with
their
regret.
resignation.
Yes.
Was that a second? All in favor? Okay.
What is the timing of that?
Yeah, I got questions on that.
On the,
Losing two part-time and getting a full-time,
Ms. Green?
without a custodian?
Yeah, so that was brought before us by the library director. It's a wage and personnel position. I think it was probably maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago,
Yeah.
that the library director came before us and said that both her and our senior center director agreed on a job description.
Yes.
They had conducted the search, and they have offered the position to somebody who I believe is starting very soon.
Gotcha, okay.
Yes.
Just both the start dates had me a little bit,
I hope
I mean,
he
the both
starts
ends.
soon because
Yeah.
Brian's done on Friday
Yeah,
and
they're
I don't know when the other guy's
they're
done.
both done on Friday.
Both
I think
Right.
that a full-time individual has been identified and
Okay.
starts.
Monday?
And he will be just working with the library, obviously, since the senior center is under repairs right
Yep.
now. So,
And that moves us to accepting Antonio Santalucia's resignation for Parks and Fields. And in his note to us, he's told us that this is because he is going to be an interim member of the FinCom, and of course, you can't serve on FinCom in any other committee.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I don't know that he explained that, but I'm saying that, so,
So moved.
He
okay.
does say that.
Kind of
Second
regret.
with semi-regret.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
All right.
Temporary regret.
And any burning committee updates?
Nope.
No.
All right, fantastic. And that moves us on to the one-day liquor license. I will entertain a motion to approve as printed in our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
I am abstaining because I am part of the Barber Arena fundraiser, and I just out of an abundance of caution don't want to vote. And then approve open session minutes from February 21st and March 7th. Did everybody have an opportunity to read those? Okay, any comments, suggestions, alterations?
Make a motion to approve as presented?
Fantastic, okay, all in favor? All right, and then Ms. Green, over to you.
Okay. All right, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. So I'm just really happy to report that the pre-demolition asbestos survey for the McQuon has been completed. I received the report on March 6th. So now we can begin the bid process again. So I need to put together the schedule to coordinate all the advertising requirements. So I hope to be able to do that in the next week or two, get that back out there. So that was very good news. You have I handed into your packet, it might be towards the end, there's an update for our budget from our town accountant. So as you know, we are working through the budget process. It's probably at the very end of that. So basically right now, and this has a little bit to do with what was discussed earlier regarding the transfer station. So right now, our shortfall is 1.381 million. And a portion of that directly is from the transfer station that was discussed earlier in the open meeting regarding the 428,000 expenditures as opposed in the 200,000 in revenue. So that those figures right there have increased our budget. You can see on the bottom there under notes, our town accountant, he has based our numbers on the governor's FY24 budget, the South Shore Vocational High School and Whitman Hanson Regional School District assessment figures. We're going to confirm their capital and debt assessments, and then we're going to look at the enterprise indirect costs. Again, there was a discussion a few weeks back using ARPA funds to supplement a full-time veteran service officer position. That would not go into effect until July 1. We have finished a first set of interviews for the veteran service officer. We are in the process of scheduling a second set of interviews.
How many did we get apply?
Well, we had 2 people come in. Unfortunately, one had to withdraw because he was a retired school teacher, and you cannot work so many hours when you're in retirement. So he had to withdraw because he would not be able to take the full-time position come July 1. So we now have, I believe, another 3 candidates that Lynn is setting up interviews with.
Okay.
Also on this too, we have sent the superintendent for Whitman Hanson Regional School District some numbers from the town that we can work with that range from 3 to 4% assessment. So we've sent those numbers to the superintendent, and I believe the school committee will be discussing that tomorrow at their meeting.
So this recap that we're looking at and forecast is based on the unrevised numbers from the school committee?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Right now, it's based on the 7.8% assessment. So if these discussions here, we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll be able to modify basically our budget end result based on what that is. And so that gives you an update on the budget and where we are. Depending on what happens tomorrow night, then we are really going to need to start vetting the process and bring this down into a balanced budget. Also, too, we are going to be holding the second set of interviews for the administrative assistant to the town planner and planning board on Thursday, this Thursday. So hopefully, we'll be able to make a decision and bring someone on board with that. And the town received a letter from the state that we are going to be receiving $319,979 in Chapter 90 funds. And that's the money that the state awards the towns for our highway department to use towards road repairs and maintenance. So that is an increase over last year's amount, but I don't have last year's amount with me. But also, we had conducted some training for our administrative professionals who generate agenda and minutes. The training went very well. Basically, they answered a lot of questions that they had on how to make sure there's enough information so that the public can understand and ascertain what's going to be discussed at meetings on the agenda, and what content needs to be included in meeting minutes to be compliant with the open meeting law. The training went very well, and I believe now they all have tools to be compliant with the open meeting law. I have spent a lot of time, basically the last week and a half, on public records requests, personnel matters, and legal matters that I can't talk about, but it has taken up a lot of time. But hopefully we can move forward with these matters that I'm working with and put them behind us. And also, too, I'd like to add that completed the renewal application for our cyber coverage insurance. There's a lot of changes coming down the road, the very close road, regarding what the town has to do in order to maintain our cyber coverage insurance, and that's our technology. And this is what we need in case we are hacked and our systems are brought down, or even worse. So this is a required coverage that we have to have. And there's new requirements that come with this new coverage as far as training. So our IT director will be sending out an email regarding what training must be done. Training must be completed by all employees in order for Maya to continue our cyber coverage.
And how will we be tracking that, and how will we be enforcing that?
Steve, can you answer the tracking question? And
So we get proof point from the state. They manage the whole system, because in order for us to actually get cybersecurity training, it would cost us a lot of money. So we go with the state's, grant that we get. The tracking of it is kind of difficult. It's not the easiest thing to track. Honestly, we don't have a portal to log in and see who's doing what. We do get a report, though. It's just kind of tough to navigate the report. So I will get a report every quarter of who has completed the training, because it's four modules that come out over the course of the year. Last year, we didn't really have that much of a user involvement, and it wasn't really enforced. So I think, I just sent the email tonight saying that this is a requirement of our side, of our insurance company. I didn't really get into any specifics about, what we will do if they don't. I'll let you guys handle how you guys want to handle that. I can tell you how we did it in Situate, but it
Yes, please do.
You lost network access. We disabled your account. And sometimes that proved very, very tough, because it happened to me. I had to disable a police officer's account on New Year's Eve. It ruined my New Year's Eve, I'll tell you that right now. Because I was told to by my boss, and I went, sure. Are you sure about this? He goes, yup. Okay. Click, and then the phones rang. So yeah, it can be difficult. So we kind of have to try to, I don't want to disable, a police or fire's account, without proper communication, without talking to the chief. I want the chiefs to be involved in this as well. I want them to know the importance. It's not just a lot of the guys are kind of just thinking, it's whatever, we know this already. But it's not everyone knows this. You might learn something from it, even if you think you know it. So I did put everybody on there. The only people I didn't were like some of the smaller boards and committees, because who's gonna do it? They have, only the board itself has an email address, not the individual users. So I'm not really concerned about that. It's pretty much anybody who has access to the internal network.
Okay. Ms. Green, you may want to contemplate that as being one of our processes and procedures, and also in the onboarding of new employees, in one of the policies that people are signing off, that they understand that in order to have access, that they need, we've got this at my place of employment, and you're just required. It's not even negotiable. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that's going everywhere. Unfortunately, it can be troublesome.
Well, what was
We've
the-
never done it before.
What was the town up in New Hampshire? Was it Goffstown, New Hampshire? Where they lost every penny in their bank account.
Well, I mean,
$32 million gone.
Not to throw stones too far, but there's a.
Oh, I know. I know, I heard it.
So, I mean, it's pretty serious.
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot of people don't take it serious because they go, oh, that's a small town. It can happen anywhere. It happens all the time.
Yep.
if anything, I think small towns are probably more vulnerable, because people that are hacking are like, come on, that's just like a little podunk town. They're not going to have an infrastructure in place to, so. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, so this is really a good example of collaboration between schools and basically our office is, we had a student in a very unfortunate and difficult situation, and it was necessary to move her. And we needed to come up with transportation for the student from where she is now to Norfolk Agricultural High School. Working together with Whitman Hanson Regional School District, their transportation coordinator, working with Norfolk Aggie, as they call it, we were able to secure transportation for the student to be able to get her to and from school every day, because it was really crucial, as that basically was the only stable environment that she had. So it was crucial for us to continue that, the transportation. Whitman Hanson is working to see if there's any type of reimbursement for us, or help with us with that cost. It does come with a significant cost, but making sure that this student had that stability in her life was crucial. So we worked together, and basically in a very short amount of time, because we were given very little notice about this, but we were able to secure transportation for her, and I hear that everything's going well. So kudos for the schools working together to make sure that this happens for the student. And also to just, again, I want to just thank all the employees who have been doing a really terrific job with being here, Lynn, with the minutes and everything in the office. We're really, it's slow steps, but we're getting there. We're getting there with the two of us. And just want to thank her and everybody who's been working hard to keep operations up and running.
Okay, great. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our open session and move to wage and personnel.
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Great. And with that, do you want the gavel, Mr. Weeks?
No, all good.
Might need it.
Call,
And then we are adjourning from that into executive session, not to reconvene in open session.
okay,
Okay?
I'll take that back for you.
Okay, great.
Call the meeting to order, 8:35. Wage and personnel, Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. New business, discuss full-time IT assistant job description and salary range. Ms. Green, I'll kick it over to you.
Okay. And we have our IT director here as well, who can speak on this as well. So one person handling the IT and technology and everything for the entire town has proven to be extremely overwhelming. He can never really take a vacation. He gets phone calls, emails, text messages, sick time, etc. And a human being can only go so far with that. Things start to fall through the cracks or just cannot get done in a timely manner. So we have a job description for an assistant. It's a 19-hour-a-week position, so part-time, no benefits. And also, too, the salary for this is already in the IT budget under computer services. So we don't need any additional money for it. We just need the wage and personnel vote to move forward. Then we will place it on the special committee warrant as a position in wage and personnel, and then move forward from there. Trying to secure an intern has proven to be a little difficult. So this here is a more stable position, and it will give our IT director the help that he needs. It will give the employees, who our computers are locked, or it's not running, or the printer's not running. That person will handle those little issues that our IT director is handling, the bigger fish, basically.
Fantastic. Yes.
Just for the record, I don't think hiring an intern for an IT position is a tremendously solid idea, so I'm glad to see that we're thinking more along the lines as an employee.
Yeah, especially given the data breach issue. If we ever had a problem.
Exactly.
Mr. Moberg, would you like to speak to this position, to this job? Anything?
Joe, while Steve's coming up, it does say discuss full-time. We are talking about a part-time position.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, once it's voted, we will add the article. Yeah.
It isn't there yet. Okay.
So, to Jim's point, is this full-time or part-time for the record? Part-time? Yeah. Okay. So do you want to speak to this a little bit, from your perspective?
Yeah, so, as some of you know, it's when I'm on vacation, I'm answering emails, taking care of problems. And it's, ever since I started every vacation I've been on, I've had to stop. All my family's been off doing stuff, helping people in various different ways. Sometimes hours, like 6 hours, sometimes half a day, sometimes only an hour. But it kind of becomes a problem. And when I have a sick day or I have my 18-month-old is sick, I was dealing with a sick baby screaming and on the phone helping somebody. Thankfully, Charlie was here that he could kind of be my hands. Stuff like that. It's becoming a huge problem. And projects that I'm trying to work on keep falling behind because I start a project and I go, okay, focus on this project, and then something blows up. And I need to go here. And then by the time I get back to the project, I'm going, all right, where do I go again? Okay, I'm gonna start all over again and start the project from scratch. So a lot of the projects that I have been working on are just kind of up in the air right now, literally. Like balls flying in the air and I hope none of them fall down because we can only do so much. So while I'm working on this project, it would be nice to have somebody part-time to say, can you triage the end users? Somebody has a problem with the printer, email, website, you name it, just something that's going on. I can now focus on the projects to get these balls coming down and rolling. It's just tough to do it by yourself.
And I think even just tonight, we talked about, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I think even tonight, we talked about, the website redesign, the potential new software for, and this is just tonight of projects that, we're kind of talking about, not to mention things that may come out of the strategic planning session. And so, in as much as we've said we're going to add to staff in our own office, IT has become a focus of this board. And of course, you've got all of the basic triage stuff that you've got to do every day. But if we want to move the ball forward, then we need to invest in IT because that's kind of a key to a lot of what we want to do.
Right. And so right now I'm working on the phone system upgrade, which has been put on hold, just because trying to coordinate all that. We have the cybersecurity stuff coming up, which you guys probably will look at some point. That's for Maya. I get the cybersecurity training where I had to export all of the users, put it all together, and manually upload each one to the state's web SharePoint. And what else I got going on? Oh, migration to our Barracuda. So we have an in-house spam Barracuda. We're moving to the cloud because they offered us a really nice deal. We get extra 2 years of coverage for nothing. if we move to it. Now, it's gonna cost us in the long run, of course, but the good thing about having this in the cloud is now we have email continuity. So if something blows up in town, the police and the fire will still have email to communicate with. Because right now, if they do, we have nothing. They lose all email. The system that has been built is robust, but it's not failure-proof. So putting this in the cloud gives us that continuity piece, so we can keep with email. That's going on.
Well, I think it's easy to say, just for whatever it's worth. Since you've come on, we've seen nothing but progress. So we can only imagine what it's like if you had the bandwidth to actually fulfill some of these projects.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I do want to say this out loud, that just because you're incredibly responsive doesn't necessarily mean you have the bandwidth to be responsive. That's more towards your character than it is towards the actual time and free time that you may have. So I think you saying that you're working this much, I think warrants additional support. So my only question is that, and this is for you, Ms. Green, is in the annual town meeting, Article 21 talks about $35,000 for the IT budget to hire a part-time assistant. So do we already have it in the budget, or are we going to town meeting for this?
We had, as you guys know, we used to have a company called Unified. I'm not sure if you guys know that. So when Ryan was here part-time, he offsetted it with a full-time managed service provider, Unified. We roughly paid about 30 grand a year for it. So there's some wiggle room there. We can come up with, in my budget, an extra 5,000. So basically what I'm doing is offsetting that cost with what we were paying them.
Okay.
So now we get, a part-time person.
So would this be adding to that?
Yeah, so basically, this position is not a position in our bylaw, with the wage and personnel bylaw. So this creates the position and funds the position.
Okay, so we're gonna have to, so we're voting tonight to create the position, fund the position. What's the salary that we're asking for? Is it 30,000, 35,000?
It's 35.
So it's going to be 35,000 in the bylaw? Okay.
And then it will have to be added into the matrix.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for anybody at all? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Come on, let me make a motion. I never get to make one.
Go ahead.
All right.
So you're a second?
No.
Second.
All right. Motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Perfect. All right. Let's see if we can make that happen for you. Great work, though. Honestly, you do a great job. You really do.
Thanks, Steve.
And then we have approved meeting minutes, November 29th, 2022, January 10th, 2023. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion.
Second.
In a second. All those in favor? There we go. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn wage and personnel, enter into executive session.
So moved.
Motion.
Oh, come on.
Second.
No.
Roll call vote.
He won't do it.
Roll call vote. We'll start on this side.
Ed.
Aye.
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 There we go.
And Ms. Green, Ms. Green, I don't have the executive session. Okay, so we are going to enter executive session pursuant to open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Robert O'Brien. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Okay, and roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're going to adjourn to executive session, and we will not be coming back in open session.